Hello friends. Did you know that nearly 80% of those who watch my videos aren't subscribed? If you enjoy the content, I'd truly appreciate it if you hit that subscribe button. It helps a lot. Also, don't forget to leave a like and share your thoughts in the comments. Your interaction not only supports the channel's growth, but also helps these stories reach more people. Thank you all for being here. By the way, where are you watching from? Let me know in the comments. The rain had been falling for 3 straight days. Not the kind of rain that clears the air or washes things clean. This was the other kind. The kind that turns the Bronx into something slick and gray, where every surface reflects red and blue, where the gutters overflow with things you don't want to look at too closely. I'm Officer Dorian Hale. Been with the NYPD for 7 years now, all of them on night shift. Some guys rotate through, try to get back to days once they've paid their dues. Not me. I prefer the night. You see the city differently when most people are asleep. You see what it really is. My partner that week was Lyle Montrose, a solid guy. 10 years on the force, divorced twice, lived alone in a studio in Astoria. He didn't talk much, which I appreciated. We'd been paired up for about 3 months, and we'd fallen into an easy rhythm. He drove, I handled the radio. He took point on domestic calls, I took the talkers who just needed someone to listen. It was a Tuesday, November, the kind of night where your breath fogs inside the car even with the heat on. We'd just cleared from a noise complaint on Webster Avenue when the call came through. Unit 54, respond to 1847 Longwood Avenue, Apartment 4C. Caller reports hearing screaming, possible domestic disturbance. I picked up the radio. Copy that, dispatch. Unit 54 responding. Lyle glanced over at me as he pulled onto the street. Longwood, that's over near the old Whitman projects, right? Think so. I pulled up the address on the MDT. The screen flickered, then loaded. Yeah. Building's been flagged before. Couple drug arrests, 1 assault back in June. Great. Lyle turned on the lights but left the siren off. No point announcing ourselves if it was a real domestic. Better to get there quiet. Assess the situation. The drive took maybe 6 minutes. The streets were empty except for a few figures huddled under scaffolding, smoking, watching us pass with that careful indifference you develop when you live in neighborhoods like this. 1847. Longwood Avenue was a 6-story walk-up, red brick gone dark with grime and age. The kind of building that was probably decent back in the 70s, before the city started its long slide. Now it was just another shell. Windows covered with bars, front entrance door hanging crooked on its hinges. We parked across the street. The rain was lighter now, more of a mist, but it made everything shimmer under the streetlights. You see any lights on? Lyle asked. I scanned the windows. All dark, every single one. Nothing. Caller still on the line? I checked the MDT. Disconnected. Dispatch tried the callback, no answer. Lyle drummed his fingers on the steering wheel. Could be they got scared, didn't want to get involved. Could be. We sat there for a moment. This is the part they don't show on TV. The waiting. The assessment. You don't just run into every situation. You look first, you listen. The building looked wrong somehow. Not just empty. Wrong. Like something was holding its breath inside. All right. Lyle pulled his flashlight from the door compartment. Let's check it out. We crossed the street, our boots splashing through puddles that reflected the sky in strange, warped angles. The front door wasn't locked. It should have been. There was a keypad entry system, but someone had pried it open months ago, maybe years. The metal hung loose, wires exposed. The lobby smelled like piss and mildew. Mailboxes lined one wall, most of them bent open or missing their doors entirely. No names visible. No building directory. just empty metal slots and torn pieces of paper. "Fourth floor," I said. "Stairs or elevator?" I looked at the elevator. The doors were dented, covered in graffiti. A handwritten sign taped to the wall read, "Out of order," in shaky capitals. The elevator shaft behind those doors probably hadn't worked in years. Stairs. The stairwell was worse than the lobby. Darker. The bulbs were either broken or missing, and our flashlights cut narrow paths through the shadows. Each landing had cigarette butts ground into the corners, empty bottles, sometimes a sleeping bag bundled against the wall. We went slow. You always go slow in stairwells. Too many blind corners. By the time we reached the fourth floor, my legs were burning and Lyle was breathing hard. We are cops, not athletes. The hallway stretched in both directions, identical doors every few feet. Most had numbers, some didn't. Some numbers were just painted over with thick coats of whatever color someone had lying around. 4C should be... Lyle pointed down the left corridor with his flashlight. We found it about halfway down. The door looked newer than the others, like maybe it had been replaced recently. The paint was fresher. The frame looked solid. There was even a peephole that wasn't scratched to hell. Lyle knocked. "NYPD, we received a call about a disturbance." Nothing. He knocked again, harder. "Police. Open the door." Still nothing. No footsteps. No TV sounds. No voices. Just that heavy silence that makes the hair on the back of your neck stand up. I tried the knob. Locked. I looked at Lyle. "You smell that?" He sniffed. "What?" "I don't know. Something chemical maybe, like bleach?" Lyle leaned closer to the door. Inhaled. Yeah, I smell it." We stood there for a moment. The hallway was completely quiet, except for a distant dripping sound somewhere deeper in the building. Water hitting water. Slow and steady. "Dispatch said apartment 4C, right?" Lyle asked. I double-checked the MDT on my belt. "Affirmative, 4C. "So, where's the caller?" That was the question. If someone inside called about screaming, why weren't they answering? If someone outside called, how did they know it was specifically 4C? The building had at least 30 apartments. My radio crackled. "Unit 54, what's your status?" I keyed the mic. "Unit 54 at location. No response at the door. Requesting additional information on the caller." There was a pause. Static. Then Maribel Cho's voice came back. She'd been working dispatch for 5 years and I'd never heard her sound uncertain. But right now, she did. "Unit 54, caller ID shows the call originated from inside 1847 Longwood, apartment 4C. Lyle and I looked at each other. "Dispatch, can you confirm? The call came from inside this apartment." "Affirmative. Landline. Registered to the building." "Run it again," I said. "Make sure." Another pause. Longer this time. "Confirmed 54. Call came from that location. But what? There's no active line registered to that address. Bell Atlantic shows service was disconnected in 2019. The chemical smell was getting stronger. Or maybe I was just noticing it more. Either way, it was making my eyes water. Lyle tried the knob again, then stepped back and looked at the hinges. "You want a force entry?" I thought about it. We had a call originating from inside, but no response. That could justify it. But something felt off. Not dangerous off, just wrong off. "Let's try the super first," I said. "See if he's got a key." We went back downstairs, found the super's apartment on the first floor. Guy named Martinez according to the mailbox. Old, probably 70, wearing a stained undershirt and boxer shorts when he answered. He looked annoyed until he saw our uniforms, then just looked tired. "What now?" "We need access to 4C, Lyle said. "Got a call about a disturbance." Martinez scratched his belly. 4C? Ain't nobody in 4C. "What do you mean?" "That apartment's been empty for 2 years. Lease ran out, tenant moved. Building owner hasn't rented it since. Says he's gonna renovate." He snorted. "Yeah, right." "Can you open it for us?" I asked. He sighed, shuffled back inside, came back with a massive ring of keys. "This gonna take long?" "I got things to do. We'll be quick." Martinez led us back upstairs, wheezing by the second floor. When we got to 4C, he flipped through his keys, found the right one, and slid it into the lock. The deadbolt turned with a solid click. "You want me to come in?" he asked. "No, wait here." Lyle pushed the door open. Our flashlights swept across an empty room. Hardwood floors, scuffed and dirty. Walls painted a dingy beige. No furniture, no curtains, nothing. Just empty space and that chemical smell, much stronger now. We stepped inside. The place was small. Living room, galley kitchen visible through an open doorway to the right. Hall straight ahead, probably leading to a bedroom and bathroom. Our footsteps echoed on the bare floor. "NYPD," Lyle called out. "Anyone here?" No answer. We checked the kitchen first, empty. No appliances except a rusted stove that looked original to the building. The sink had a brown stain running down the drain. The chemical smell was worse in here. "Check under the sink," I said. Lyle opened the cabinet. Inside were a few empty bottles, some rags, and a gallon jug of industrial-strength bleach, half empty. "Well, that explains the smell," he said. We moved down the hall. One bedroom on the left, bathroom on the right. Both doors were open. Both rooms were empty. The bedroom had a closet, but it was just an empty rectangle with a few wire hangers on the rod. The bathroom had a toilet, a sink, and a bathtub with rust stains and peeling enamel. The grout between the tiles was black with mold. We checked every corner, every closet. Nobody was here. Nobody had been here for a long time, based on the dust. "So, what the hell?" Lyle said. "Dispatch said the call came from here." I pulled out my radio. "Unit 54 to dispatch." "Go ahead, 54. We're inside the apartment. It's empty, completely empty. No signs of occupancy. Can you pull the call recording?" "Stand by." We waited in the living room. The rain had started up again outside, harder now, drumming against the windows. The glass was so dirty I could barely see the streetlights through it. Maribel came back on. 54, I've got the recording, playing it now." There was a click, then a voice. Female. Middle-aged, maybe. Calm. Too calm. 911, what's your emergency?" "They're screaming. Apartment 4C. Someone's screaming." "What's the address, ma'am?" 11847 Longwood Avenue. "Are you in the building?" "Yes." "Which apartment are you calling from?" 4C. "You're calling from the same apartment where you hear screaming?" "Yes." "Ma'am, are you in danger right now?" A pause. Just static and that same calm voice. "Not right now." Then the line went dead. I looked at Lyle. He looked pale in the flashlight beam. That's fucked up." "Yeah." We finished clearing the apartment, but there was nothing else to find. Just empty rooms and that bleach smell. When we came back out, Martinez was leaning against the wall, scrolling through his phone. "Find anything?" he asked. "No, place is empty like you said." "You sure nobody's been in here?" He shrugged. "I mean, I don't watch it 24/7, but there's no tenant, no lease. Building owner hasn't been by in months." He squinted at us. Why? What happened? Someone called 911 from inside, Lyle said. Martinez's expression didn't change. On what phone? Landline. Can't be. No phone service in there. That's what we heard. He shook his head slowly. Nah. Something's wrong with your equipment or whatever. Nobody's been in there. I'd know. We thanked him and let him go. Back in the apartment, we did one more sweep with our flashlights, but it was the same. Empty floors, empty walls, nothing. Maybe it's a system glitch, Lyle said. You know how the old landline routing works. Could have gotten crossed with another address or something. Maybe. But I didn't believe it, and I could tell he didn't either. We went back downstairs, got in the car, and I radioed it in. Dispatch logged it as unfounded. We cleared the scene and moved on to the next call. That should have been the end of it. 3 nights later, same shift, same partner. We were grabbing coffee at a bodega on Prospect Avenue when the call came through again. Unit 54. Respond to 1847 Longwood Avenue, Apartment 4C. Caller reports hearing screaming, possible domestic disturbance. I froze with the coffee cup halfway to my mouth. Lyle heard it too. He was already moving toward the door. Unit 54 responding, I said into the radio. Copy that, 54. We got in the car, and Lyle just looked at me. No fucking way. I know. Same apartment, same exact call. I know. We drove fast this time. No code, no lights, but faster than we needed to. The building looked the same as before. Dark windows, broken door, rain making everything shine wet and sick under the streetlights. This time we didn't wait. We went straight upstairs, straight to 4C. The door was locked again. I didn't even bother knocking. I radioed down to dispatch. Unit 54 at location. Can you confirm the call details? Time, caller description, anything? Maribel's voice came back. Same as before, 54. Female caller, middle-aged, states there's screaming in apartment 4C at 1847 Longwood. Can you play the recording? Stand by. A moment later, the recording played over the radio. It was the same voice, the exact same voice, the same pauses, the same calm tone, the same words. They're screaming. Apartment 4C. Someone's screaming. What's the address, ma'am? 1847 Longwood Avenue. Even the static sounded the same. Lyle was staring at me. That's the same recording. It can't be. It is. Word for word, I remember it. I keyed the radio again. Dispatch, can you check the timestamp on that call? When did it come in? Call was received at 23:47:54, about 8 minutes ago. And the previous call? From 3 days ago? A pause. Stand by. Another pause. Previous call was received at 23:47 on November 12th. Same time. Exact same time. Down to the minute. Dispatch, can you pull the caller ID again? Already showing the same origin point. Landline from apartment 4C, 1847 Longwood Avenue. But again, there's no active service to that address. Lyle was pacing now, boots squeaking on the dirty hallway floor. This is bullshit. Someone's screwing with us. How? Who has access to the 911 system? I don't know, but this isn't real. It can't be real. I tried the door again. Still locked. I thought about forcing it, but what was the point? We'd been inside 3 days ago. It was empty then. It would be empty now, unless someone had moved in since. But Martinez said nobody had been here. No lease, no tenant. Let's check the other apartments, I said. See if anyone heard anything. We knocked on 4A. No answer. 4B, no answer. 4D at the end of the hall, no answer. We went to the third floor, tried those apartments. A few people answered, but they all said the same thing. They hadn't heard any screaming, hadn't heard anything unusual. Most of them looked at us like we were crazy for even asking. One old woman in 3C, Mrs. Rodriguez, she looked scared when we mentioned 4C. "Nobody goes up there," she said, through the gap in her door, chain still on. "Why not?" She shook her head. "Just don't. That apartment's bad luck." "What do you mean, bad luck?" "The last people who lived there. They left in the middle of the night, didn't take nothing with them, just left. Building owner had to throw out all their stuff." She crossed herself. "Something wrong with that place." "Did something happen there?" Lyle asked. "Not that I know. But people don't stay. Nobody stays in 4C. They move in, then a few weeks later they're gone. Been like that for years." "How many years?" She thought about it. "Since I've been here, 20 years, maybe more." "Did you hear anything tonight? Any screaming?" "No, I told you, I don't hear nothing from up there. It's quiet, always quiet." We thanked her and moved on. But as we walked away, I heard her muttering something in Spanish. I didn't catch most of it, but I heard one word clearly: maldito, cursed. Back on the fourth floor, we stood outside 4C again. The door looked the same, the peeling paint, the scratched frame, the solid deadbolt. Nothing had changed. "You want to go back inside?" Lyle asked. I thought about it, that empty apartment, the bleach smell, the darkness. "No, there's nothing in there." "So, what do? We log it, same as before." We went back to the car and I radioed it in. Dispatch logged it as unfounded again. We cleared and moved on, but something was bothering me. Something Mrs. Rodriguez said. The last tenants left in the middle of the night. Didn't take anything with them. "Hey," I said to Lyle, "you think we could pull the lease records for that apartment? See who lived there before?" "Why?" "I don't know. Maybe one of them is making the calls. Someone with a grudge or something." Lyle shrugged. "Worth a shot, I guess." The next day, during my off hours, I went down to the city records office. Pulled everything I could find on 1847 Longwood Avenue, apartment 4C. Lease records going back 15 years. There were 7 different tenants in that time. 7 people or families who'd moved in, then moved out. The average stay was 4 months. 4 months. For an apartment in the Bronx, that's nothing. Most people stay at least a year, usually more. But 4C, 4 months on average. And according to the building owner's notes, most of them broke their leases early. Forfeited their deposits. Just left. I wrote down the names, ran them through the system. 2 had moved out of state. 1 had died in 2021, unrelated to anything at the apartment. The others were still in New York, scattered across the boroughs. I didn't have time to track them all down, but I found one, a woman named Patricia Morales who'd lived in 4C for 2 months back in 2020. She was living in Queens now, working at a laundromat on Roosevelt Avenue. I went there on my day off, found her folding sheets in the back. She was maybe 30, tired-looking, with her hair pulled back in a tight ponytail. "Patricia Morales?" She looked up, suspicious. "Who's asking?" I showed her my badge. "Officer Dorian Hale, NYPD. I wanted to ask you some questions about an apartment you used to rent." Her face changed, got pale. "I don't want to talk about that." "About what? I haven't even told you which apartment." "I know which one. 1847 Longwood, 4C." She went back to folding sheets, faster now, her hands shaking slightly. "I don't want to talk about it." "Why not?" "Because I don't. I paid what I owed. I'm done with that place." "Did something happen there?" She didn't answer for a long time, just kept folding sheets, stacking them on the industrial dryer. Finally, she said, "You hear things in that apartment." "What kind of things?" "Voices. At night, like someone talking, but you can't make out the words, and other sounds. Footsteps, doors closing. But you're alone. You're always alone in there." "Did you call anyone about it? The super, the landlord?" She laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. "I called the super. He came up, looked around, said there was nothing there, said I was hearing things from the other apartments, but I wasn't. I know what I heard." She looked at me directly for the first time. "Why are you asking about this now? Did something happen? We've been getting calls from that apartment." "What kind of calls?" 911 calls. Someone saying there's screaming." Patricia's hands stopped moving. She was holding a sheet, frozen halfway through folding it. "That's what I heard," she said quietly. "Screaming in the middle of the night, like someone was being heard. But there was nobody there, nobody but me." "How long did you hear it before you moved out?" 3 weeks. I lasted 3 weeks after it started. Then I packed my shit and left. Didn't even tell the landlord. I just couldn't." She shook her head. "I couldn't stay there another night." "Did you ever call 911? "No. I thought about it, but what would I say? There's a ghost screaming in my apartment? They'd think I was crazy." "Did you ever figure out where the sounds were coming from?" She resumed folding, slower now. "I tried. I checked the walls, the floor, the ceiling. I thought maybe it was pipes or something. Old buildings, they make weird sounds, right? But it wasn't that, it was..." She trailed off, searching for words. It was like the sound was coming from everywhere and nowhere. Like it was in the air itself. I thanked her and left. Drove back to the Bronx thinking about what she'd said. Screaming at night. The same thing the 911 caller reported. But if the apartment was empty, who was doing the screaming? That night, back on shift, Lyle and I were rolling through Hunts Point when dispatch came through again. "Unit 54, respond to 1847 Longwood Avenue, apartment 4C. I didn't even wait for her to finish. "Dispatch, are you serious right now?" "Affirmative 54, same call. Female caller reporting screaming from apartment 4C. Lyle was already turning the car around. "This is the 3rd time." "I know. Same time?" I checked the dashboard clock. 23:47. Same time. We drove there faster than we should have. This time, I was angry. Someone was playing games and I wanted to know who. When we got to the building, we didn't go upstairs right away. Instead, we walked around the perimeter looking for any signs that someone might be watching us. Security cameras maybe, or someone parked in a car nearby. But there was nothing. Just empty streets and dark windows. Finally, we went upstairs. 4C's door was locked, same as always. I pounded on it harder than I needed to. "NYPD, open the door!" Nothing. Just silence and that fucking bleach smell seeping out from under the door. Lyle kicked the wall in frustration. "I'm getting the super. We're going inside." He came back 10 minutes later with Martinez, who looked even more annoyed than last time. "You again? Open it." Martinez unlocked the door and stepped back. "This is the last time. You want in after this? Get a warrant." We went inside, flashlights up, sweeping every corner. The apartment was exactly the same as before. Empty. Dust on the floor. That chemical smell. Nothing had changed. Nothing was different, except... In the bathroom, the bathtub had water in it. Not much. Maybe an inch. But it was there, sitting in the bottom of the tub, reflecting our flashlight beams. I knelt down, touched it with one finger. Cold. Ice cold. "Lyle." He came over, looked down at the water. What the hell? That wasn't here before. No, it wasn't. Where did it come from? I looked up at the ceiling. No visible leaks. The pipes were probably old and corroded, but there were no drips, no watermarks on the ceiling or walls. I checked the faucet, turned the knob. Nothing came out. The water had been shut off to this apartment years ago. "Dispatch," I said into my radio. "Unit 54, we're inside the apartment. Found approximately 1 inch of standing water in the bathtub. No visible source." "Copy that, 54. Do you require additional units?" "Negative, just logging it." Lyle was looking at me. "You thinking what I'm thinking? That this is getting really fucking weird?" "Yeah." We checked the rest of the apartment again, but there was nothing else. Just that water in the tub. We went back downstairs, thanked Martinez, and sat in the car for a while. Neither of us wanted to clear the call, because that would mean going back to normal patrol, pretending like this was just another unfounded domestic. But it wasn't. Something was wrong with that apartment. Something that didn't make sense. Finally, Lyle started the engine. "You want to stake it out?" "What?" "Stake out the building. See if anyone goes up there. See who's making these calls." I thought about it. We were supposed to be on patrol, not sitting in one spot all night. But I wanted answers. Fuck it, yeah, let's do it. We parked across the street with a view of the front entrance, turned off the engine, kept the lights off. Just sat there in the dark, watching. The rain had stopped, but the streets were still wet, reflecting the yellow glow of the street lamps. Nothing happened for the first hour. A few people walked by. A car or two drove past. The building stayed dark and silent. Around 2 a.m., a homeless guy shuffled up to the entrance, tried the door, then moved on when he found it locked. At 2:30, Lyle was starting to doze off. I was fighting to keep my eyes open. This was pointless. Whoever was making the calls wasn't going to show up while we were sitting here. Then at exactly 2:47 a.m., the lights in apartment 4C turned on. I sat up straight. "Lyle?" "What?" "Look, 4th floor. 3rd window from the left." He looked. The lights were on in 4C. Yellow light spilling out through the filthy windows. We could see shapes moving inside, shadows crossing the light. "Someone's in there," Lyle said. We were out of the car in seconds, running across the street. Burst through the front door, took the stairs 2 at a time. By the time we reached the 4th floor, we were both breathing hard, hands on our weapons. The hallway was dark, but under the door of 4C, there was light. Bright yellow light, like every bulb in the apartment was on. I pounded on the door. "NYPD, open up!" The light went out. Just like that. 1 second it was there, spilling out from under the door. The next second, darkness. Lyle tried the knob, still locked. "Police, we know you're in there. Open the door." No response. I radioed for backup, then we waited. It felt like forever, but it was probably only 5 minutes before 2 more units showed up. We forced the door. The frame splintered, the lock gave way, and we rushed inside. Empty. The apartment was empty. Flashlights revealed the same dust, the same bare floors, the same nothing we'd seen before. We checked every room, every closet. Nobody was there. And the lights? All the bulbs were missing from the fixtures. Had been missing. There was no way those lights had been on, but we'd seen them, both of us. And the other officers, when they arrived, they'd seen them too from the street. 4 cops standing in an empty apartment, looking at each other, trying to figure out what the hell just happened. After that night, I started having trouble sleeping. I'd close my eyes and see that light spilling out from under the door. Hear that calm voice on the 911 recording. They're screaming. Apartment 4C. Someone's screaming. I went back during the day, off duty, just to look at the building in the daylight. It looked worse somehow, more decrepit. The brick was crumbling in places, and several windows on the upper floors were broken. I tried to go inside, but Martinez caught me in the lobby. "You again, man? You need to let this go." "Has anyone gone into 4C?" I asked. "No, nobody. It's locked. And I'm the only one with a key besides the building owner, and he hasn't been here in months." "Can I see it one more time?" He sighed, a long, exhausted sound. "Fine. But this is the last time. I mean it." We went upstairs together. In the daylight filtering through the dirty hallway windows, the building looked even more run down. The wallpaper was peeling, exposing water-stained drywall underneath. Some of the apartment doors had notices taped to them. Eviction warnings, code violations. Martinez unlocked 4C and pushed the door open. The smell hit me immediately. Bleach, but stronger than before. Much stronger. It made my eyes water. "Jesus," Martinez said, covering his nose. "What the hell?" The apartment was still empty, but now there were wet footprints on the floor. Small footprints, like a child's or a woman with small feet. They led from the bathroom, through the bedroom, into the living room, then back to the bathroom. The same path, over and over, layered on top of each other. The water from the bathtub was gone. The tub was bone dry, but the footprints were wet, glistening in the daylight. Martinez backed away. No way, I'm done. I'm not coming back up here." "Wait," but he was already leaving, practically running down the hall. I heard his footsteps on the stairs, getting fainter. I stood there alone in the doorway, looking at those footprints. They ended right at the threshold, right where I was standing. Like whoever made them had walked up to the door and stopped. Just stood there waiting. I should have left, should have closed the door and walked away, but instead I stepped inside. Followed the footprints with my eyes. They went into the bathroom, so I went there too. The tub was dry, but there was something in it now. A phone, an old rotary phone, the kind you haven't seen in decades. Beige plastic, coiled cord. It was sitting in the center of the tub, the cord disappearing down the drain. I stared at it for a long moment. My radio crackled, making me jump. Just dispatch, talking to another unit about a traffic accident on the Cross Bronx. Normal cop stuff. But in this apartment, in this bathroom, nothing felt normal. The phone rang. A real, old-fashioned ring, loud and jarring in the empty apartment. It rang once, twice, 3 times. I reached down and picked it up, lifted the receiver to my ear. Static, just static and a distant sound underneath it, like wind or breathing or both. Then a voice, female, middle-aged, calm. "They're screaming." I dropped the phone. It clattered into the tub, the receiver falling off and dangling by its cord. But the voice kept going, thin and distant now, coming from the receiver. Apartment 4C. Someone's screaming. I backed out of the bathroom, out of the apartment, into the hallway. Pulled the door shut behind me. My hands were shaking. My heart was pounding so hard I thought I might pass out. I went downstairs, got in my car, and drove away. Didn't look back. That was 4 days ago. I haven't been back to 1847 Longwood Avenue since. Told my sergeant I needed a few personal days. He didn't ask questions. He's been on the job long enough to know when someone's seen something that shook them. But last night, at exactly 11:47 p.m., my phone rang. My cell phone. Not my work radio. My personal phone that I keep in my pocket. I didn't recognize the number. Picked it up anyway. Static, that same static, and underneath it, faint but clear, a woman's voice. "They're screaming. Apartment 4C. Someone's screaming." I hung up. Blocked the number. But something tells me it doesn't matter. Tonight I'm back on shift. same partner, same route. And I know with absolute certainty that at 11:47 p.m. the call is going to come through again. Unit 54, respond to 1847 Longwood Avenue. I don't know what's in that apartment. I don't know what we're responding to. But I know this. Whatever it is, it wants us there. It's been calling us there over and over, and sooner or later, we're going to find out why. I just hope we're ready for the answer. It's 11:45 p.m. now. Lyle and I are parked on Jerome Avenue, 2 blocks from Longwood. We're early. I told him we should be close, just in case. He didn't argue. He's been quiet all shift, more quiet than usual. I think he knows something's coming. The radio is silent except for the usual chatter. Units clearing calls, checking in, requesting backup for minor disturbances. Normal night in the Bronx. Except it's not normal. Not for us. 11:46. I'm watching the clock on the dashboard. The red numbers seem brighter than usual, like they're counting down to something. Lyle's hands are gripping the steering wheel even though the car is in park. Maybe it won't happen tonight, he says. It will. How do you know? I just know. 11:47. The radio crackles. Unit 54, respond to 1847 Longwood Avenue, apartment 4C. Caller reports hearing screaming, possible domestic disturbance. Lyle's jaw tightens. He doesn't look at me. Just puts the car in drive and pulls onto the street. Unit 54 responding, I say into the radio. My voice sounds hollow. We don't turn on the lights this time. Don't speed. Just drive there at normal pace, like we're going to any other call. But my stomach is churning. My hands are sweating. I can feel something building, like pressure before a storm. The building looks the same. Always looks the same. Dark windows, broken door, rain just starting to fall again. We park in our usual spot across the street. You ready? Lyle asks. No, me neither. We get out of the car, cross the street. The rain is light, more mist than real drops, but it makes everything slick. My boots splash through a puddle, and I see our reflections for a second. 2 cops in dark uniforms walking toward a dark building. Then the reflection breaks apart into ripples. The lobby is empty. Darker than usual. I can't remember if any of the lights were working before, but they're definitely not now. Our flashlights cut through the blackness, illuminating the mailboxes, the broken elevator, the stairs leading up. We start climbing. I count the steps without meaning to. 18 to the first landing. 18 more to the second. The building is quiet. Completely quiet. No TV sounds, no voices, no footsteps from the apartments we pass. It's like everyone left. Like we're the only people in the entire building. 4th floor. The hallway stretches ahead of us. Dark except for our flashlight beams. Apartment 4C is halfway down on the left. The door is closed. From this angle, it looks like every other door. Just a door. But there's light coming from underneath it. Not a lot. Just a thin line of yellow light, barely visible. But it's there. Lyle sees it too. He stops walking. Dorian. I see it. We approach slowly. Every step feels heavy, like the air itself is getting thicker. The light under the door gets brighter as we get closer. I can hear something now. Faint, like water running. Or maybe rain, I can't tell. I knock on the door. NYPD. The light goes out. But the door opens. Just an inch. Just a crack. Not like someone pulled it open. More like it opened on its own. Like the building itself decided to let us in. Lyle has his hand on his weapon. We need to call this in. Call what in? What are we going to tell them? He doesn't answer because he knows I'm right. What would we say? The haunted apartment opened itself. I push the door open wider. It swings on its hinges with a soft creak. Our flashlights reveal the same empty living room we've seen before. Bare floors, bare walls. But something's different now. There are wet footprints, dozens of them, maybe hundreds. They cover the entire floor, layered on top of each other in chaotic patterns. Some going to the bathroom, some to the bedroom, some just circling in the middle of the room, round and round, like someone pacing. Jesus Christ, Lyle whispers. We step inside. The door swings shut behind us. Not slam, just closes. Soft, final. The footprints are fresh. I can see water still glistening on some of them. I kneel down, touch one with my finger. It's ice cold. When I pull my hand back, my finger is wet. I wipe it on my pants, and my hand is shaking. Bathroom, Lyle says. We follow the footprints. They lead down the hall into the bathroom. The door is open. The light is on in there. Real light, not flashlight beams, yellow and flickering, like there are candles, but I can't see any candles. The bathtub is full. Water almost to the brim. Clear water, perfectly still. Not a ripple on the surface. The phone is still there, sitting in the center of the tub, somehow floating on the water without sinking. The cord still disappears down the drain. As we watch, the phone rings. Lyle backs up. No. Fuck this. We're leaving. But I can't move. I'm staring at that phone, watching it ring. Once, twice, 3 times. Pick it up, someone says. I spin around. There's a woman standing in the bathroom doorway. Middle-aged, gray hair, wearing a nightgown that's soaking wet. She's looking at me with empty eyes. Lyle has his gun out. Ma'am, identify yourself. She doesn't look at him. Doesn't even seem to see him. Just keeps staring at me. Pick it up, she says again. The phone is still ringing. 4 times now. 5. Who are you? I ask. Pick it up. 6 rings, 7. Lyle is talking into his radio, calling for backup, but I can't hear what he's saying. All I can hear is the phone ringing and the woman's voice, calm and flat. Pick it up. I reach into the tub. The water is so cold it burns. My fingers close around the phone receiver. I lift it out of the water and it's heavier than it should be. Like it's made of stone instead of plastic. I put it to my ear. At first, there's nothing. Just silence. Then, slowly, I hear it. Screaming. Not one voice. Many voices. Dozens of them. Hundreds, maybe. All screaming at once, layered over each other. Men, women, children, all of them screaming in terror and pain and desperation. And underneath the screaming, I hear water. The sound of water running, splashing, churning, like a bathtub filling, like someone drowning. I drop the phone. It falls back into the tub with a splash and the water starts to drain. Fast, like someone pulled a plug. The phone spins in the vortex, circling the drain, getting pulled down. In seconds, the tub is empty. When I look up, the woman is gone. The lights are out. We're standing in darkness again, just our flashlights. The bathroom is empty, dry. The tub is bone dry, like it never had water in it at all. Dorian, Lyle says, his voice is shaking. We need to go, now. We run. Through the apartment, down the hall, out the door. Our boots pound on the stairs as we descend. 4 floors in what feels like seconds. We burst through the front door into the rain and don't stop running until we're across the street at our car. We sit there, engines off, rain drumming on the roof. Neither of us says anything for a long time. Finally, Lyle speaks. What the fuck was that? I don't know. Did you see her? Yeah. Who was she? I don't know. But that's not entirely true. I have an idea. I've been thinking about Patricia Morales, about what she said, about all the tenants who left in the middle of the night, about 20 years of people moving in and moving out, never staying, always running. Something happened in that apartment, something that left a mark. And whatever it was, it's still there, still calling out, still screaming. Our radios crackle, dispatch calling other units. Someone else needs help. Someone else is in danger. The city keeps moving, keeps living, keeps dying. But apartment 4C at 1847 Longwood Avenue stays the same. Empty. Waiting. We pull away from the curb. Lyle drives, and I stare out the window at the building getting smaller in the side mirror. The fourth floor is dark. All the windows are dark. Except one. Just for a second I see a light in 4C, and a silhouette standing at the window. A woman in a nightgown, her hands pressed against the glass. Then it's gone. I don't tell Lyle what I saw. What's the point? We both know we're going to get called back there. Maybe not tomorrow, maybe not next week. But eventually, at exactly 11:47 p.m., that call will come through again. Unit 54, respond to 1847 Longwood Avenue, apartment 4C. Caller reports hearing screaming. And when it does, we'll go. We'll always go. Because that's the job. That's what we signed up for. Even if we don't know what we're responding to. Even if we're not sure we'll come back. I pull out my phone. One new voicemail. Left at 11:47 p.m. I don't need to listen to know what it says. I delete it without playing it. But as we drive through the rain-soaked streets of the Bronx, I can still hear it. That calm voice, those same words. There's screaming. Apartment 4C. Someone screaming. And somewhere in the back of my mind, I wonder, is someone screaming? Or is the apartment itself? Maybe we'll find out. Maybe we won't. Either way, I know one thing for certain. That call will come again, and when it does, we'll be there. There's a park in Woodhaven that nobody talks about. Not the locals, not the city, not even the homeless who sleep everywhere else. It's called Juniper Playground, though the sign fell down years ago and nobody bothered putting it back up. The place has been closed since 2018, chained and padlocked, with yellow caution tape that's faded to white in the sun. I'm Officer Nolan Creed. 12 years with NYPD, the last 6 in Queens. I've worked every neighborhood from Astoria to Far Rockaway, seen enough weird shit to fill a book. But nothing prepared me for Juniper Playground. My partner for this story is Tessa Rourke. She's a rookie, just finished her probationary period, still has that shine in her eyes like she's going to change the world. I was assigned to show her the ropes, teach her how things really work out here. By the end of this, I think I taught her more than either of us wanted to know. It started on a Thursday in October, the kind of fall night where the air is crisp and the leaves are just starting to turn. We were on a quiet stretch of patrol driving through Woodhaven around 3 a.m. when dispatch called us. Unit 23, we have a complaint about noise disturbance at Juniper Playground, intersection of 88th Street and Forest Parkway. Caller reports sounds of children playing. Can you investigate? Tessa looked at me. Kids playing at 3 a.m.? Probably teenagers messing around, I said. Or somebody's TV is too loud. Copy that, dispatch. Unit 23 responding. Juniper Playground sits on a corner lot, surrounded by a chain-link fence that's maybe 8 feet tall. The fence is topped with razor wire that was installed when they closed the place. The gate is secured with a heavy chain and industrial padlock. Beyond the fence, you can see the playground equipment. Swings, a slide, a jungle gym, all painted in primary colors that have faded to pastels over the years. We pulled up to the curb and killed the lights. The street was empty. No cars, no pedestrians, nothing. The houses nearby were all dark, windows like dead eyes looking down at us. "Looks quiet," Tessa said. I listened. She was right. No sounds of kids playing. No sounds at all except the distant hum of traffic on the parkway and the rustle of leaves in the wind. "Let's take a look around." We got out of the car, and that's when I noticed the temperature. It was at least 10 degrees colder near the playground than it had been 2 blocks away. I could see my breath fogging in front of me. Tessa noticed it too, pulling her jacket tighter. "Why is it so cold here?" "I don't know. Weird pocket of air, maybe." We walked along the fence line, our flashlights sweeping across the playground. Everything looked normal. The swings hung motionless. The slide gleamed dully in the flashlight beam. The jungle gym cast long shadows across the wood-chip ground. Then Tessa stopped. "Nolan, look at that." She was pointing at the ground near the fence. In the dirt and scattered leaves, there were footprints. Small footprints, like a child's. They led from the sidewalk to the fence, then stopped. They didn't go around the fence or turn back. They just stopped, like whoever made them walked straight through the chain link. "Kids probably squeezed through somewhere," I said, but I didn't believe it even as I said it. The fence was solid, no gaps, no holes, and those footprints were fresh, disturbing the leaves that had fallen just that evening. We walked around the perimeter, found more footprints in 3 other spots. Same pattern. They led to the fence and stopped. No footprints inside the playground, no footprints leading away. "This doesn't make sense," Tessa said. "No, it doesn't." We checked the gate. The chain was secure, the padlock undamaged. Nobody had cut their way in. The razor wire on top of the fence was intact, no signs that anyone had climbed over. "Maybe the caller was wrong about the location," Tessa suggested. "Maybe it was a different playground. Maybe." But I was looking at those swings again. They were moving now, just slightly, back and forth like someone had just gotten off. But there was no wind. The air was completely still. "Tessa, yeah? Tell me you see that." She followed my gaze, watched the swings moving. Her hand moved to her weapon automatically. "What's making them move? I don't know." We stood there for maybe 2 minutes, watching the swings gradually slow and stop. The cold was getting worse. I could feel it seeping through my jacket, into my bones. My teeth wanted to chatter. "Let's check with the houses," I said. "See if anyone saw anything." We knocked on 3 different doors. Nobody answered. At the 4th house, a light came on upstairs, and eventually an old man opened the door. He was maybe 70, wearing pajamas and a bathrobe, looking annoyed at being woken up. "Mr. Pardon?" I read the name from the mailbox. "Sorry to bother you. We're responding to a noise complaint about the playground. Did you hear anything tonight?" His expression changed. The annoyance faded, replaced by something else. Fear, maybe, or resignation. "I didn't call you," he said. "Someone did. Said they heard children playing." "At this hour?" "Yes, sir." He looked past us at the playground, visible through the gap between houses. "I don't look at that place anymore, haven't for years." "Why not?" "Because nothing good comes from looking." "Mr. Pardon, have you noticed anything unusual about the playground?" He laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. "Unusual? That whole place is unusual. Has been since they closed it." "What do you mean?" He glanced back into his house like he was making sure nobody was listening. Then he stepped out onto the porch, pulling the door mostly closed behind him. His voice dropped to almost a whisper. It was a little girl back in 2017. She was on the swings, middle of the day, mother sitting right there on the bench. Girl fell off, hit her head on the ground, fractured her skull. She was in the hospital for 3 days before she died. I'm sorry to hear that. After that, the city closed the playground, said they needed to do a safety review, but they never reopened it. Just locked it up and left it. And ever since then, he trailed off, shaking his head. Ever since then, what? Strange things. Sounds at night. Children laughing, crying. The swings moving when there's no wind, and the footprints. You see them? We saw them. They show up every night, around 3 a.m., same time every night. Same little footprints. They're there in the morning, then gone by afternoon. Been happening for years. Has anyone investigated? Police came by a few times, first couple years after it closed, but they never found anything. Eventually, they stopped coming. Now, we just don't look at it anymore. Do you know who made the 911 call tonight? He shook his head. I told you it wasn't me. I don't call about the playground. What's the point? Nothing you can do about it. We thanked him and went back to the car. I radioed dispatch. Unit 23, we've checked the location. No signs of disturbance. Playground is secure, possibly an unfounded call. Copy that, 23. Show you clear. We were about to leave when Tessa pointed at the playground. Nolan, the footprints are gone. I looked. She was right. The dirt near the fence was smooth again, leaves undisturbed. The footprints we'd seen just 15 minutes ago had vanished. That's not possible. I know. We both saw them. I know. We sat there for a moment, looking at that empty playground. The swings were still now. Everything was still. But I had the distinct feeling we were being watched. Like there was something in there behind the jungle gym or under the slide, looking out at us. Let's get out of here, I said. Tessa didn't argue. 3 nights later, same shift, we were driving through Ridgewood when the call came through. Unit 23, noise complaint at Juniper Playground. Caller reports sounds of children playing. Multiple callers this time. I looked at Tessa. She looked pale in the dashboard lights. Multiple callers? She asked dispatch. Affirmative. We've received 3 separate calls in the last 10 minutes, all reporting the same thing. Copy. Unit 23 responding. This time, we weren't alone when we got there. 2 other patrol cars had arrived just before us. 4 officers standing on the sidewalk, looking at the playground. I recognized one of them. Officer Marcus Webb from the 102nd Precinct. Marcus, what's going on? He shrugged. Got the same call you did, but look at this. He gestured toward the playground. At first, I didn't see what he meant. Then I noticed the swings. All 6 of them were moving, not just drifting. Really moving like kids were on them. Back and forth, the chains creaking rhythmically. There's no wind, one of the other officers said. A young guy I didn't know. He sounded scared. There wasn't. The air was perfectly still, dead calm. But those swings were pumping like invisible children were trying to see how high they could go. Did anyone check inside? Tessa asked. How? Marcus gestured at the fence. Things locked up tight. Has been for years. Someone could have cut their way in. We walked the perimeter again. The fence was intact. No holes, no gaps. The gate was still chained and padlocked. But those swings just kept moving, the metal creaking in the silence. This is fucked up, the young officer said. Check the houses, Marcus said. See if we can find who made the calls. We split up, 4 teams of 2, each taking a section of the surrounding streets. Tessa and I got the houses directly across from the playground. We knocked on 6 doors. 3 didn't answer. The other 3 were all elderly residents who said they hadn't called the police. But we heard it, one woman told us. She was maybe 80, wrapped in a blanket, her hands shaking as she held her door open. We heard the children, laughing and playing, just like it used to be before. Before what, ma'am? Before that little girl died. She told us the same story Mr. Pardon had told us. The girl on the swings, the fall, the death, the closure of the playground. Her name was Lily Chen, the woman said. She was 6 years old. So beautiful, always smiling, her mother never recovered. Moved away a few months after it happened. Nobody's seen her since. And you've heard sounds from the playground since then? All of us have. Everyone on this block. We hear it almost every night now. Used to be just once in a while, maybe once a month. But lately, it's every night. Always around the same time. What time? 3:17 a.m. That's when it happened, when Lily fell. 3:17 in the afternoon. Now that's when we hear the sounds. 3:17 in the morning. I looked at my watch. 3:12 a.m. Thank you, ma'am. We went back to the playground. All 8 officers were standing there now, watching the swings. They were still moving. If anything, they were moving faster. Marcus was recording video on his phone. Nobody's going to believe this. At exactly 3:17 a.m., the swings all stopped at once. Just froze in mid-arc, then dropped straight down. The sudden silence was deafening. Jesus Christ, someone whispered. Then we heard it. Laughter. Children's laughter, faint but clear, coming from inside the playground. It sounded like multiple kids. Maybe 4 or 5 of them laughing and playing. But there was nobody there. The playground was empty. The laughter lasted maybe 30 seconds. Then it faded away, replaced by another sound. Crying. A child crying. Not all the children, just one. A little girl sobbing like her heart was broken. Tessa had her flashlight up, shining it through the fence. I don't see anything. Nobody's there, Marcus said. But his voice was shaking. The crying got louder, more desperate. Like whoever was making the sound was hurt, scared, alone. It was the worst sound I've ever heard. Every instinct in my body was screaming at me to go in there, to find that child, to help. We need to open the gate, I said. With what? Thing's got a padlock the size of my fist. Bolt cutters. We've got them in the trunk. Marcus looked at me like I was crazy. Nolan, there's nobody in there. Then why is she crying? He didn't have an answer for that. I went to my car, got the bolt cutters from the trunk. By the time I got back, the crying had stopped. The playground was silent again. Marcus grabbed my arm. Don't, he said. Someone might be hurt. There's nobody there, Nolan. We all see that. There's nobody there. But I pulled away from him and cut the padlock. It fell to the ground with a heavy thunk. I unwrapped the chain and pushed the gate open. It swung on rusty hinges, the metal shrieking. Tessa, you're with me. She looked scared, but she nodded and followed. We stepped through the gate into the playground. The wood chips crunched under our boots. Our flashlights swept across the equipment, the swings, the slide, the jungle gym. Everything was empty, but it was cold in here, colder than outside. So cold I could see ice forming on the metal chains of the swings. My breath came out in thick white clouds. Nolan. Tessa was pointing at the ground near the swings. Look. Footprints. Small footprints in the wood chips. Fresh ones, disturbing the surface like someone had just walked there. They led from the gate to the swings, then back to the slide, then over to the jungle gym. A child's path, wandering and random, the way kids move when they're playing. We followed the footprints. They led us around the entire playground in a meandering loop. sometimes doubling back, sometimes circling the same piece of equipment multiple times. Finally, they stopped at the swings, right under the third swing from the left. "This is where Lily Chen fell," Tessa said quietly. I shined my flashlight on the ground. The wood chips there were different, newer, like they'd been replaced. I knelt down, brushed some of them aside. Underneath, the ground was stained dark. Old blood, maybe, or just dirt. I couldn't tell. Then I heard it, right next to my ear, so close I could feel breath on my neck. "Help me," a little girl's voice, clear as day. Right there. I spun around. Nobody. Tessa was 3 feet away, looking at the jungle gym. The other officers were still outside the fence, watching us. There was nobody near me. "Tessa." "Yeah? Did you hear that?" "Hear what?" Someone just spoke, right next to me. A little girl's voice. She shined her light around. "I don't hear anything." But I did. I heard it again, softer this time, coming from everywhere and nowhere at once. "Help me, please, it hurts." "There's a child here," I said into my radio. "We need EMS." Marcus's voice came back, crackling. "Nolan, there's nobody there. We can see the whole playground from here. It's empty." "I'm telling you, I hear her." "Nolan, you need to get out of there." But I couldn't. I was frozen, listening to that voice. She was crying again now, soft, whimpering sobs that tore at my heart. I turned in a slow circle, trying to figure out where it was coming from. The swings were moving again, just the third one from the left. Back and forth, like someone was sitting on it. The seat depressed slightly, the chains creaking under invisible weight. "Tessa, you seeing this?" She was backing away. "Yeah, I see it. Someone's on that swing. Nobody's on it, Nolan. We can both see that." But the swing kept moving, and the crying kept going, and that voice kept whispering, "Help me. Please. I'm so cold, it hurts." I reached out toward the swing. My hand passed through empty air where a child should have been sitting. But the seat was warm. I could feel heat radiating from it, even though everything else was ice cold. Then the swing stopped. Just stopped dead, chains rattling. The crying cut off like someone had flipped a switch. The playground went completely silent. I stood there with my hand extended, touching nothing but feeling something I couldn't explain. Warmth where there should have been cold. Presence where there was absence. "Nolan," Tessa's voice was tight. "We need to go." "Yeah." We backed out of the playground, through the gate, onto the sidewalk. I was shaking. Not from the cold, though I was freezing. From something else. Fear, maybe. Or the horrible certainty that we'd just encountered something that shouldn't exist. Marcus was staring at us. "You okay?" "No," I said honestly. "No, I'm not okay." "What happened in there?" I tried to explain, the voice, the footprints, the warm swing seat. But even as I said it out loud, I knew how it sounded. Crazy. Like I'd lost my mind. "I heard it too," Tessa said quietly. At the end, when we were leaving, I heard a little girl say, "Don't go." The other officers were all looking at us like we'd grown second heads. But Marcus just nodded slowly. "I've heard stories about this place," he said. "From older guys on the force. They say it's been haunted since that girl died, maybe before. They say don't answer calls here after midnight." "Why didn't you tell us that before we went in?" I asked. "Would you have believed me?" He was right. I wouldn't have. We stood there for a few more minutes, but nothing else happened. The playground was dark and still. Eventually, dispatch called us away to another call. I wrapped the chain back around the gate, but I didn't replace the padlock. I'd cut it, and I didn't have a new one. As we drove away, I looked back in the side mirror. The playground was receding behind us, getting smaller. But just before we turned the corner, I saw something that made my blood run cold. On the swing, the third swing from the left, a little girl was sitting there. I couldn't see her face, just her silhouette, but I could see that she was swinging, back and forth, just sitting there swinging in an empty playground at 3:30 in the morning. Then we turned the corner, and she was gone. I should have let it go, should have filed my report and moved on, but I couldn't stop thinking about that voice, that little girl's voice, asking for help, saying it hurt, saying she was cold. The next day, during my off hours, I went to the library, looked up everything I could find about Juniper Playground and Lily Chen. There wasn't much. A few news articles from 2017 about the accident, an obituary, a mention that the playground had been closed pending a safety review. What interested me more was what I found when I dug deeper. Juniper Playground had been built in 1987. Before that, the lot had been empty for decades. And before that, going back to the 1920s, there had been a building there, a children's hospital that burned down in 1931. 17 children died in that fire. The hospital had been located right where the playground was now. The burn had started in the middle of the night, and by the time firefighters arrived, the second floor had collapsed. Most of the children who died had been trapped on that floor. The youngest was 4 years old. The oldest was 11. I found old newspaper articles about the fire. They described the screams of the children, the desperate attempts to rescue them, the horror of parents watching the building burn with their kids inside. One article mentioned that several children's bodies were never recovered. The fire burned so hot that there was nothing left to find. After the fire, the lot sat empty for decades. Too many bad memories, too much grief. Finally, in the late 80s, the city decided to build a playground there, turn tragedy into something hopeful, something for the living. But maybe some tragedies don't want to be forgotten. I went back to Juniper Playground that afternoon. In daylight, it looked different, less threatening. Just a sad, abandoned place with rusted equipment and faded paint. The gate was still unchained, swinging slightly in the breeze. I went inside, walked around in the daylight, looking at everything with fresh eyes. The wood chips, the equipment, the fence. It all looked normal, harmless. Then I noticed something I hadn't seen before. Near the jungle gym, partially hidden by overgrown weeds, there was a small plaque, bronze, green with age. I knelt down to read it. In memory of those lost, 1931. That was all it said, no names, no details, just that simple memorial, forgotten and overgrown, marking the spot where 17 children had died almost a century ago. I stood up and looked around the playground with new understanding. This wasn't just the site of Lily Chen's death. It was built on top of a mass grave. 17 children who died screaming, trapped in fire and smoke. And now, maybe, one more. Lily, who died right here in this same spot, screaming in her own way. My phone rang. Tessa. Nolan, where are you? The playground. Why? You need to get out of there, now. What's wrong? I've been doing research. That playground, Nolan, there's something really wrong with it. I know. I found out about the hospital. It's not just that. I talked to someone from the city archives. They have records of calls to that location going back decades. Noise complaints, disturbances, wellness checks, all of them around 3:17 a.m., all of them describing the same thing. Children playing, children crying. How far back? To 1988, the year after the playground opened. 35 years of complaints, hundreds of them. And you know what else? What? 3 other people have died in that playground. Not just Lily, a teenager in '92, fell from the jungle gym and broke his neck. a maintenance worker in 2003, heart attack while doing repairs, and a homeless man in 2011, found frozen to death on one of the benches even though it was July. I felt cold despite the afternoon sun. Jesus. Nolan, I think that place is dangerous. I think we need to tell someone. Get it investigated properly, or torn down, something. Who's going to believe us? She didn't have an answer for that. I spent the rest of the afternoon talking to more residents near the playground, knocking on doors, asking questions. Most people wouldn't talk to me. Either they didn't know anything, or they didn't want to say. But a few did. An old man named Robert Torres told me he'd seen children in the playground dozens of times over the years. Always at night, always around 3 a.m. He'd watch them playing, swinging, climbing. But when he went to check on them, they were gone. Just vanished. A woman named Alice Brennan told me her daughter used to have nightmares about the playground. Said she dreamed about children calling to her, asking her to come play. The daughter was 15 now and refused to walk past Juniper Playground even in daylight. Everyone had a story. Everyone had seen something, heard something, felt something wrong about that place. But nobody had ever done anything about it because what could you do? Call the police and say a playground is haunted? File a complaint about ghosts? As evening approached, I found myself back at the playground. The gate was still open, swinging slowly in the breeze. I stood on the sidewalk, looking in at that empty space. The swings hanging still, the slide gleaming in the fading light. Everything looking so normal. But it wasn't normal. It had never been normal. I pulled out my phone and called Tessa. I'm going to stake it out tonight. What? Nolan, no. I need to see it for myself, understand what's happening. You've already seen it. We both have. I need to see more. I need to know if it's real. Of course it's real. We both, really real. Not just sounds and moving swings. I need to see what's there. She was quiet for a moment, then, I'm coming with you. You don't have to. Yeah, I do. I'm your partner. That's how this works. We met back at the playground just before midnight. Parked the car down the street, out of sight. Walked back with flashlights off, staying in the shadows. The neighborhood was quiet. Most houses dark. A few TV lights flickering in windows. We found a spot across the street, behind a big oak tree, where we could see the whole playground. Settled in to wait. The hours passed slowly. Midnight, 1 a.m., 2 a.m. Nothing happened. The playground just sat there, dark and empty. I was starting to think this was a waste of time when Tessa grabbed my arm. Look, the temperature. I could see my breath suddenly. The air had gone from cool to freezing in the space of a few seconds. The windows of nearby cars were fogging over. Frost was forming on the grass. 3:15 a.m. It's happening, I whispered. At exactly 3:17 a.m., the swings started moving, all 6 of them pumping in perfect unison. Back and forth, higher and higher. And then we heard it. Laughter. Children laughing, playing, having fun. The sound was coming from inside the playground clear as day. We could hear individual voices. A girl giggling, a boy shouting, multiple children talking over each other. But the playground was empty. We could see every inch of it from our position. There was nobody there. The swings kept moving. Then the slide lit up. Not with any visible light source, but we could see something sliding down it. A shadow, maybe. A distortion in the air. It reached the bottom and ran toward the jungle gym, and we could hear footsteps on the wood chips. More shadows appeared. 4, 5, 6 of them, all child-sized, all moving, playing, running around the playground. Sometimes we could almost see features. A dress, a striped shirt, dark hair. but they were never quite solid, just impressions, suggestions of children who weren't really there. "Holy shit," Tessa breathed. One of the shadows stopped at the third swing from the left, the one where Lily Chen died. It stood there for a moment, and even though we couldn't see a face, I had the overwhelming sense that it was looking at us, staring right at us from across the street. Then it sat on the swing and started moving, pumping its legs, going higher and higher. The other shadows gathered around, watching. The laughter had stopped. Now there was just silence, broken only by the creaking of the chains. The shadow on the swing went higher, higher than any child should be able to go. The chains were nearly horizontal at the top of each arc. Then, at the peak of one swing, the shadow let go. It flew through the air in a perfect arc. For a moment, it seemed to hang there, suspended. Then it fell. We heard the impact, a sickening thud, like a watermelon dropped from a roof. The other shadows all turned toward the fallen one. Someone started crying, that same heartbroken sobbing we'd heard before. The shadow on the ground didn't move. The other shadows gathered around it. They were all crying now, all of them, a chorus of grief that echoed through the empty street. Some of them knelt down. Some reached out with hands that weren't quite there. They were trying to help, trying to comfort, but there was nothing they could do. One shadow stood apart from the others, smaller than the rest. It was standing right at the fence, looking out at us again. And then it spoke. Help us, not help me. Us. Plural. We're so cold, it hurts. Please help us. Tessa and I just stood there, frozen, unable to move or speak. We were watching something impossible, something that shouldn't exist. But it was real. It was happening right in front of us. The shadows began to fade as we watched, growing dimmer, less distinct. Within a minute, they were gone completely. The playground was empty again. The swings hung motionless. The crying had stopped. But we could still feel them there, still sense their presence, waiting, watching, trapped in an endless loop of playing and dying and playing, over and over again every night at 3:17 a.m. We filed a report, both of us, detailed descriptions of everything we'd seen and heard. We knew how it would sound, knew what people would think, but we filed it anyway. The department sent someone out to investigate, a supervisor from downtown who'd been on the force for 25 years. He looked at the playground in daylight, talked to a few residents, checked the security of the fence. Then he filed his own report, saying there was no evidence of any actual disturbance and no justification for further action. He didn't stay until 3:17 a.m. The city installed a new padlock on the gate, reinforced the fence in a few places, put up a new sign, "No trespassing. Violators will be prosecuted." Like that would keep out whatever was in there. The calls kept coming. Every few nights, someone would report sounds from the playground. Children playing, children crying. Dispatch would send units out, and they'd find nothing. Eventually, most officers stopped responding. They'd log the call as unfounded without even going to the location. But Tessa and I, we kept going. Every time the call came in, we responded. We never went inside the fence again, but we watched from the street. And every time at 3:17 a.m. we saw the same thing. The shadows, the swings, the fall, the crying. We weren't the only ones. Other officers started seeing it too. Marcus Webb saw it one night when he was passing through on patrol. Another pair of rookies saw it and requested transfers to different precincts immediately after. Word spread quietly through the department. Don't go to Juniper Playground after midnight. Don't answer those calls if you can avoid it. But someone has to answer. I started researching more, digging deeper into the history of the site. I found records of the children's hospital, lists of patients, staff records. Most of the 17 children who died in the 1931 fire were documented. Names, ages, causes of death. But 4 of them were listed simply as unidentified. 4 children who died in that fire and were never claimed, never buried with names on their graves. I found photographs of the hospital before the fire. A 3-story brick building with large windows and a play area in the back. In one photo, I could see children playing on swings and a slide. The playground equipment looked old-fashioned, but the layout was almost identical to the modern playground. The swings in the same spot. The slide in the same corner. Almost like whoever designed Juniper Playground had used the old hospital playground as a blueprint. Maybe without knowing. Maybe by accident. Or maybe the place itself remembers. Maybe the ground holds on to what happened there, and when they built the new playground it just filled in the shapes that were already there, like pouring water into a mold. 3 months after that first call, Tessa and I were assigned to a different sector, standard rotation. We were supposed to be done with Juniper Playground, but on our last night in that patrol zone, the call came through one more time. Unit 23, noise complaint at Juniper Playground. Tessa looked at me. You want to take it? Yeah, one last time. We drove there in silence, pulled up to our usual spot across the street. It was 3:10 a.m., 7 minutes early. The playground looked the same as always, dark, empty, waiting. We got out of the car and walked to the fence. The new padlock was still in place. The no trespassing sign fluttered slightly in the cold breeze. What do you think they want? Tessa asked. Those kids, why are they still here? I don't know. Maybe they don't know they're dead. Maybe they're trapped somehow. Maybe they're just... I trailed off, not sure how to finish. Maybe they're trying to warn us, Tessa said. About the place. About what it does. Warn us about what? She gestured at the playground. This place takes children. It's been taking them for almost 100 years. The fire, Lily, maybe others we don't know about. And it's still hungry. I'd thought about that too. The pattern of deaths. The way they seemed to cluster around this one spot. Like the place itself was cursed. Or alive. Or both. 3:17 a.m. The swing started moving right on schedule. The temperature dropped. We heard the laughter, saw the shadows appear. The same scene we'd witnessed before playing out again like a recording. But this time, something was different. One of the shadows broke away from the group, came toward the fence, toward us. We could see it more clearly than before. A little girl in a dress, dark hair, maybe 6 or 7 years old. She stopped right at the fence, her face almost visible through the chain link. "Lily?" I said. She nodded, or I thought she did. The movement was so slight I might have imagined it. "What do you need?" I asked. "How can we help?" She raised her hand, pointing, not at us, past us, across the street, at a house with dark windows and an overgrown yard. "What's there?" Tessa asked. The shadow girl opened her mouth. We couldn't hear words, but I could read her lips. "He's there. He's always been there." "Who?" But she was fading already, pulled back by whatever force kept them all trapped in that playground. She looked at me one more time, and I saw something in her shadow face that broke my heart. Fear. Terrible, unending fear. Then she was gone. All the shadows were gone. The playground was empty and silent again. Tessa and I looked at the house the girl had pointed to. It was directly across from the playground with a clear view of the swings and slide. The windows were dark, but I could feel something watching from inside. Something aware of us standing there. "We should check it out," I said. "Now?" "Now." We crossed the street. The house was old, probably built in the 40s. 2 stories, peeling paint, sagging porch. The mailbox said T. Morrison. No lights were on anywhere. I knocked on the door. No answer. Knocked again. Harder. Still nothing. Tessa tried looking through the front window, but curtains blocked the view. Think anyone's home? Only one way to find out. I knocked a third time, loud enough to wake anyone inside. NYPD, we need to speak with you. Finally, a light came on upstairs. Footsteps on stairs. The door opened a crack, and a man looked out. Old, maybe 75. Thin face, white hair, watery blue eyes. He looked annoyed. What do you want? It's the middle of the night. Mr. Morrison, we're investigating a disturbance. Do you mind if we ask you a few questions? About what? The playground across the street. His expression changed, got guarded. What about it? Have you noticed anything unusual there, especially late at night? No. You're sure? No sounds, no activity. I said no. Now, if you don't mind, I was sleeping. He started to close the door, but I put my hand up. Mr. Morrison, how long have you lived here? Why does that matter? Just wondering. He stared at me. 53 years. I've lived in this house for 53 years. Anything else? 53 years. That meant he'd been here when they built the playground. Been here when Lily Chen died. Been here for all of it. That's a long time, I said. You must have seen a lot of changes in the neighborhood. Some. Must have been hard, watching that little girl die in the playground. I don't know what you're talking about. Lily Chen, 2017, fell from the swings right across the street from your house. You must have seen it happen. I wasn't home. Really? Middle of the afternoon, beautiful day, and you weren't home? That's what I said. Tessa had been quiet, but now she spoke up. Mr. Morrison, do you have children? His face went pale. No. You're sure? I said no. It's just that we found some old property records. This house used to be owned by Thomas and Margaret Morrison. They had a son, Thomas Jr. He'd be about your age now. I don't have to answer your questions. Not without a warrant. He tried to close the door, but I kept my hand up. We're not accusing you of anything, sir. We're just trying to understand what happened at that playground. Nothing happened. Leave me alone. Then why do the children point at your house? Tessa asked. Why do they keep looking over here? His face went from pale to gray. I don't know what you mean. Yes, you do. He was shaking now, his hands trembling as they gripped the door. You need to leave. Now. Did you see the fire? I asked. The hospital fire in 1931? You would have been young, but maybe you remember. Get off my property. Did you see the children burning? Did you hear them screaming? Get out! He slammed the door. We heard locks clicking, a chain sliding into place. Then silence. Tessa and I stood on the porch, looking at each other. He knows something, she said. Yeah, he does. We went back to the car. I put in a request for all property records and background checks on Thomas Morrison, both senior and junior. It would take a few days to come through, but I had a feeling we'd find something interesting. As we sat there, I looked back at the playground one more time. The swings hung motionless. Everything was dark and still, but I knew they were still there. The shadow children, Lily, the others, all of them trapped in that place, replaying their deaths night after night. And across the street, lights were on in every window of Morrison's house now. We could see him moving from room to room, pacing, looking out at the playground, looking out at us. Whatever happened there, whatever kept those children trapped, he knew about it. Maybe he was part of it. Maybe he'd been watching them die for 53 years. The sun was starting to come up. Our shift was over. We had to clear and head back to the station. "We'll figure this out," Tessa said. "We'll find out what's going on." Yeah, but I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure anyone could figure out Juniper Playground. Some places, some things, they're beyond understanding, beyond fixing. All you can do is mark them and stay away, or keep answering the calls, keep watching, keep bearing witness to something that shouldn't be possible but is. That's what we do. That's the job, even when the job takes you places you never wanted to go. Even when you can't look away from what you've seen. Even when you know, deep down, that some questions don't have answers. Just ghosts. And playgrounds. And children who died screaming so long ago that nobody remembers their names. But they remember. They'll always remember. And at 3:17 a.m. every night, they'll keep playing, swinging, falling. Waiting for someone to understand. Waiting for someone to help. Waiting forever in that cold, dark playground where children go but never leave. I don't patrol that sector anymore. Got reassigned, like I said. But sometimes, on nights when I can't sleep, I drive by Juniper Playground. Park across the street. Watch. The calls still come in. The shadows still appear. The crying still echoes through the empty streets. And every time, at exactly 3:17 a.m., one of those shadows points at Morrison's house. Whatever's in there, whatever he knows, it's connected to all of this. I'm sure of it. But some investigations, they never close. Some mysteries, they never get solved. You just learn to live with them. Learn to hear those voices in your sleep, asking for help you can't give. Learn to see those shadows in your peripheral vision, watching you from empty playgrounds. Learn to check the time at night and feel your heart race when it says 3:17. That's the real horror, not the ghosts, not the shadows, not the impossible things you witness. It's knowing they're still out there, still trapped, still suffering, and there's nothing you can do about it. Nothing at all. The New York subway system has 472 stations. That's the official number anyway. What they don't tell you is that there are dozens more that don't show up on any map. Abandoned platforms, closed tunnels, stations that were built and then forgotten. The city keeps growing over itself, layer upon layer, like scar tissue. I'm Detective Arlen Price. I've been with Transit Bureau for 9 years now, moved up from patrol 5 years ago. Most people think transit cops just chase fare beaters and break up fights on platforms. They're not wrong, but that's not all we do. We're responsible for everything that happens in the 300 and something miles of subway tunnels under this city. And sometimes, what happens down there doesn't make it into any official reports. My partner for this investigation was Gideon Lutz. Transit officer for 12 years, knows the system better than anyone I've ever met. He can tell you the history of every abandoned station, every sealed tunnel, every ghost platform. He's the guy you call when you need to go somewhere that's not on the map. It started 2 weeks before I got involved. A patrol officer named Kovac had responded to a call about someone on the tracks at the old Worth Street station. Worth Street was closed in 1962, part of a renovation project that never quite happened the way it was supposed to. The platforms are still there, sealed off behind walls and locked gates, but sometimes people find their way in. Urban explorers, homeless people looking for shelter, kids who think they're being edgy. Kovac went down there with his partner and found nothing. No one on the tracks, no signs of entry through the barriers. He logged it as unfounded and moved on. 3 days later, the same call came in. Different officer, same result. Nobody there. Then it happened 5 more times in 8 days. Always the same station. Always the same vague report of someone on the tracks. And always, when officers responded, the platform was empty. That's when they called me. Brass wanted to know if it was a prank, a system glitch, or if someone was actually getting in and out without leaving traces. I was supposed to figure out which one and make it stop. I met Gideon at the Canal Street station at 11 p.m. on a Tuesday. Late enough that most commuters were gone, early enough that we still had train traffic to worry about. He was waiting for me on the platform, looking bored. "Price, heard you pulled Worth Street." "Lucky me." "Yeah, that place is fun. Real architectural gem." I'd learned early on that Gideon's idea of fun was pretty different from most people's. He'd grown up in the system, father and grandfather both transit workers, and he knew all the history, all the urban legends, all the dark corners nobody talked about. We took the 6 train down to Brooklyn Bridge, then walked through a maintenance corridor that required 3 different keys to access. The corridor was narrow and poorly lit, with exposed pipes running along the ceiling and water dripping from somewhere I couldn't identify. Our footsteps echoed in a way that made it sound like someone was following us. "How many times have you been to Worth Street?" I asked. 6, maybe 7 times. Usually escorting transit crews doing inspections. Nobody's supposed to be down here otherwise. But people get in. Oh yeah, there's always a way. Lock a door, people find the window. Seal the window, they find a vent. You can't really secure these old stations, not completely. They were built with too many access points, and half of them aren't even on the blueprints anymore. We reached a steel door marked with faded yellow paint. Authorized personnel only. Gideon unlocked it with one of his keys, and we stepped through into the station. Worth Street platform stretched out in both directions, disappearing into darkness at both ends. The walls were covered in old tile, most of it cracked or missing. Ancient advertisements were still visible in some places. Faded ghost images selling products that didn't exist anymore. The platform edge was marked with the same yellow safety strip every platform has, but this one was covered in decades of grime. Across the tracks, the opposite platform was just as empty, just as dark. The tunnel curved away in both directions, and I could hear the distant rumble of trains passing through adjacent tunnels. But here, nothing. Just silence and stale air and the feeling that we were somewhere we shouldn't be. "So, what's the deal with this place?" I asked. Gideon pulled out his flashlight and swept it across the platform. Worth Street was built in 1904, part of the original IRT line. It ran until 1962, then they closed it when they expanded the Brooklyn Bridge station. Supposed to be temporary while they did renovations, but temporary has a way of becoming permanent down here. Station's been sealed for 60 years. Has there been trouble here before? Not really. We get the occasional urban explorer, but they usually stick to the more famous abandoned stations. City Hall, 8th Street, those are the ones people want to see. Worth Street doesn't have the same appeal. It's just forgotten. We walked the length of the platform, checking for any signs of entry or habitation. No trash, no sleeping bags, no graffiti. The dust on the ground was undisturbed except for our footprints. If someone had been here recently, they'd left no traces. "You want to check the tracks?" Gideon asked. "Might as well." We climbed down to track level. Have to be careful here. Even though the station's closed, the tracks are still live. Trains pass through without stopping, and if you're not paying attention, you might not hear one coming until it's too late. We walked along the track bed, our flashlights cutting through the darkness. The tunnel walls were covered in grime and water stains. Rats scurried away from our lights. The third rail hummed with electricity beside us, and I was very careful to keep my distance from it. About 50 feet into the tunnel, Gideon stopped. "You hear that?" I listened. At first, I didn't hear anything except the ambient noise of the subway system. Then I caught it. A sound like static. like a radio tuned between stations. Where's it coming from? Can't tell. Sound does weird things down here. Bounces around, gets amplified, comes from directions that don't make sense. We kept walking, following the sound. It got louder as we went deeper into the tunnel. Not just static anymore. There were patterns in it. Rhythms. Almost like someone was trying to say something, but the signal was too degraded to make out words. Then my radio crackled. Not a voice, not a transmission, just that same static sound coming through my radio. Gideon's radio did the same thing. We looked at each other. "That's not supposed to happen," he said. "Our radios don't pick up interference like that, not unless—" The static cut off. Both radios went silent at exactly the same time, and in that silence we heard something else. Footsteps, coming from deeper in the tunnel, getting closer. I put my hand on my weapon. "NYPD, identify yourself." The footsteps stopped. "This is a restricted area," I called out. "ESA, you need to exit the tunnel immediately." No response. Just that heavy silence pressing in around us. Then the footsteps started again. But they weren't getting closer anymore. They were moving parallel to us, like whoever it was walking along the opposite platform. But we could see the opposite platform from here, and it was empty. "Gideon, you seeing this?" "Yeah, nobody's there." "But we're hearing footsteps." "Yeah." The footsteps continued for maybe 30 seconds, then stopped again. This time, they didn't restart. We waited, listening, but there was nothing. Just the distant rumble of trains and the hum of the third rail. "Let's go back," I said. We retreated to the platform, climbed back up, and did one more sweep of the area. Still nothing. No signs that anyone had been here. I took photos of everything, documented the condition of the access points, made notes about the footsteps and the radio interference. "You think it's acoustics?" I asked Gideon as we were leaving. "Sound from another tunnel bouncing around? Maybe. Like I said, sound does weird things down here." But he didn't sound convinced. We locked the access door behind us and headed back up to street level. It was past midnight now, and the city was as quiet as it ever gets. I filed a preliminary report saying we'd found no evidence of unauthorized entry and recommended increased monitoring of the site. Should have been the end of it. 3 days later, I got a call from dispatch at 2 a.m. I was off duty, asleep in my apartment in Astoria when my phone rang. "Price, we've got another call for Worth Street. Possible person on the tracks. Send a patrol unit." We did. They reported hearing voices but found no one. They're requesting a detective come down. I groaned, looked at my clock, and seriously considered telling them to handle it themselves. But something made me say yes. Maybe curiosity. Maybe just the nagging feeling that there was more to this than simple trespassing. I got dressed, drove into Manhattan, and met the patrol officers at the Canal Street access point. 2 young guys, both looking spooked. "What did you hear?" I asked. "Someone talking," one of them said. His nameplate read Torres. We could hear it clearly, a woman's voice, I think, coming from the platform. But when we got there, nobody was around. What was she saying? Couldn't make it out, just words, like she was having a conversation with someone. I went down with them. Same route Gideon and I had taken. Same narrow corridor, same locked door. But when we opened it and stepped onto the platform, something was different. There was a smell, faint but distinct. Not the usual subway smell of brake dust and ozone and damp. This was something else. Something organic. Like flowers. Old flowers, the kind you find in a funeral home. Torres smelled it too. "That's new?" "Yeah." We did a sweep of the platform. Nothing. Checked the tracks. Nothing. But that smell lingered, getting stronger near the middle of the platform, right where the benches used to be before they were removed decades ago. My radio crackled. That same static I'd heard before. Then, faint but clear, a voice. Bora. Just that. One syllable. Maybe half a word. Then silence. Torres looked at me. Did your radio just... Yeah. We waited, listening. The radio stayed silent, but the smell was getting stronger. I was starting to get a headache from it. That overpowering floral scent mixed with something underneath it. Something that wasn't flowers at all. Something rotting. Let's go, I said. We sealed the station back up and went topside. I called Gideon, woke him up, told him what had happened. A voice on the radio? He asked. What did it say? I don't know. Sounded like Bura, or maybe Bureau. Could have been anything. And the smell? Flowers, like a funeral home. He was quiet for a moment. Price, I'm going to tell you something, but you're going to think I'm crazy. Try me. There's an old story about Worth Street. I heard it from a transit worker who'd been in the system for 40 years. He said that platform is haunted. Come on. I'm serious. He said back in the 60s, right before they closed it, there was an incident. A woman fell, or jumped, nobody's sure, onto the tracks. Train hit her. They found pieces of her scattered along 200 feet of tunnel, but they never found all of her. Some parts were never recovered. That's a nice story, but after that, people reported seeing her or hearing her. Station workers, maintenance crews, anyone who went down there after hours. They'd hear a woman's voice. Sometimes crying, sometimes calling out. And sometimes they'd smell flowers. Like someone had brought flowers to leave at the site. You're saying Worth Street is haunted by a suicide victim from 60 years ago. I'm saying there's a consistent pattern of reports going back decades. I've read the old incident logs. They're all in the archives if you want to look. Strange sounds, unexplained voices, that floral smell. It's been happening since the station closed. And nobody thought to mention this before. Would you have believed me if I told you before you went down there? He was right. I wouldn't have. I'm going back down, I said. Tomorrow night, same time. You coming with me? Do I have a choice? Not really. The next night, Gideon and I were back at Worth Street at 2 a.m. This time, we came prepared. Extra flashlights, recording equipment, fresh batteries for our radios. If there was something down here, we were going to document it. The platform looked the same as before. Dark, empty, abandoned. But that smell was there again. Flowers. Old, dying flowers. It was stronger than last time, thick enough to make my eyes water. You smell it? I asked. Yeah, Jesus, that's strong. We set up a voice recorder on one of the old support columns, then walked the length of the platform. I was looking for any mundane explanation. Air vents that might carry smells from elsewhere, acoustic anomalies that might explain the voices. But there was nothing. The platform was sealed. No air circulation except what came from the tunnels themselves. At 2:17 a.m., my radio crackled, that same static. Then the voice, clearer this time. Bora, can't. Female voice. Middle-aged, maybe. The words were cut off by static, but I could hear emotion in them. Distress. Fear. Gideon's radio did the same thing. Same voice, same words, overlapping perfectly. Hello? I said into my radio. This is Detective Price, Transit Bureau. Who is this? No response. Just silence. Then, from somewhere on the platform, we heard the footsteps, not the heavy boots of someone walking on concrete. Lighter, like dress shoes. Click, click, click across the platform from one end to the other. We spun around, flashlights up. Nobody there. but we could hear the footsteps clearly, moving past us, heading toward the far end of the platform. "Show yourself," Gideon called out. "We know you're here." The footsteps stopped. The lights went out. Not our flashlights. Those stayed on, but the emergency lighting that lined the platform, the dim bulbs that are supposed to stay on even in abandoned stations for safety reasons, those went dark. All of them at once. The platform was plunged into complete blackness, except for our flashlight beams. "What the hell?" Gideon's voice was tight. Then we heard it. A woman screaming, not from our radios this time, from the tunnel. A horrible, terrified scream that echoed off the walls and seemed to come from every direction at once. It lasted maybe 5 seconds. Then it cut off abruptly, like someone had flipped a switch. The emergency lights came back on. The platform looked exactly as it had before. Empty. Silent. Gideon and I just stood there, our flashlights trembling slightly in our hands. "Tell me you heard that," he said. "I heard it. Tell me you recorded it." I checked the voice recorder. Still running. I played back the last minute. Our voices were there, the radio static was there. But the scream? Nothing. Just silence where the scream should have been. "That's impossible," I said. "We both heard it." "Yeah." We stayed on the platform for another hour, but nothing else happened. The smell gradually faded. The radio stayed quiet. Whatever had been there was gone now. As we were leaving, I noticed something I hadn't seen before. On the wall, near the stairs, mostly hidden by grime and water stains, there was a memorial plaque. Small, bronze, so covered in dirt I'd walked past it a dozen times without noticing. I wiped it clean with my sleeve. The inscription was barely legible, but I could make it out. "In memory of Eliza Kovarik, 1961. Just a name and a date. Nothing else. But I knew that name. I'd seen it in the old incident reports. Eliza Kovarik was the woman who died on these tracks, the one whose body was never fully recovered. I took a photo of the plaque, then we left. Neither of us spoke on the way back up. What was there to say? I spent the next 2 days in the archives, pulling every report I could find related to Worth Street. Gideon had been right. There were dozens of incident reports going back to 1962. Strange sounds, unexplained voices, equipment malfunctions, and in nearly every case, someone mentioned that floral smell. The reports about Eliza Kovarik's death were fragmentary. She'd been on the platform at 2:17 a.m., according to the one witness who'd been there. A transit worker doing a late-night inspection. He said she'd been standing at the edge of the platform, looking down at the tracks. He'd called out to her, asked if she was okay. She'd turned toward him, opened her mouth to say something, and then fallen or jumped. He couldn't say which. The express train had been doing 50 miles an hour when it hit her. The engineer never even saw her. By the time they stopped the train, she was already dead. The cleanup took 6 hours, and even then, the report noted that several body parts remain unrecovered in the tunnel. After that, the station was closed. Officially, it was for renovations. But I found an internal memo from a transit authority supervisor suggesting that the closure was at least partly due to ongoing concerns about the site following the recent tragedy. They'd put up the memorial plaque, sealed the station, tried to forget about it. But Eliza Kovarik, it seemed, hadn't forgotten. I tracked down the witness, the transit worker who'd seen her fall. His name was William Rothstein, and he was 87 years old now, living in a nursing home in Queens. I went to see him. He was in a wheelchair, hooked up to an oxygen tank, but his mind was sharp. When I mentioned Worth Street, his eyes went distant. "I haven't thought about that night in years," he said. Tried not to, anyway. Can you tell me what you remember? All of it. I remember all of it. He shifted in his wheelchair, the oxygen tube whistling with each breath. I was doing a routine inspection. Late shift, checking the signals and switches. I came up onto the platform around 2 a.m. and she was there, just standing at the edge, looking down. Did she say anything? I called out to her, asked if she was all right. She turned toward me and I saw her face. He paused, and I could see his hands trembling on the armrests. She wasn't crying, wasn't upset. She just looked empty, like there was nothing left inside her. What happened then? She opened her mouth to say something. I heard one word. Bureau. That's all. Just bureau. Then she fell, or stepped off. I still don't know which. It happened so fast. Bureau, are you sure? I'm sure. I've heard that word in my dreams every night for 60 years. Do you know what she meant? Why she said that? He shook his head. No idea. Police investigated, but they never found anything. She didn't leave a note. No family came forward. She was just nobody. A woman who fell onto the tracks and died. Did you go back to that station after she died? Once. They asked me to help with the cleanup. I shouldn't have done it. Should have said no. His hands were shaking harder now. We found pieces of her, parts that the train had scattered. We put them in bags, but we couldn't find everything. The supervisor said we'd gotten enough that the rest would decompose or get washed away in the runoff. But I knew we'd left pieces of her down there. And after that, I transferred to a different line. Told them I couldn't work near Worth Street anymore. I could hear her, you see. Whenever I went near that station, I could hear her voice. Still saying that one word. Bureau. Over and over. I thanked him and left. On the drive back to Manhattan, I couldn't stop thinking about that word. Bureau. What had she been trying to say? Was it part of a longer sentence? A name? That night, I was back at Worth Street. Alone this time. I'd told Gideon he didn't need to come. That I just wanted to do one more check. Truth was, I needed to be alone with this. Needed to understand it without anyone else there. I set up my recording equipment again and waited. The platform was silent. Dark. That floral smell was there, but faint now. Almost gone. At 2:17 a.m., my radio crackled. Bura, can't breathe. 3 words this time. Clear enough to make out. Bureau, can't breathe. Or maybe buried, can't breathe. The static made it hard to tell. Eliza? I said into the radio. Eliza Kovarik, can you hear me? Nothing, just static. I know what happened to you. I know you fell here. I know parts of you were never recovered. Is that why you're still here? The static intensified. Then, breaking through it, that same voice, clearer than before. Can't leave. Still, here, help me. How can I help you? Find me, please. Can't breathe. The signal cut out. The platform went silent. But I understood now, or I thought I did. Eliza Kovarik was trapped here because parts of her body were still in this tunnel. Still buried somewhere in the walls or the trackbed. She couldn't leave because she was incomplete. I called Gideon. Woke him up for the 2nd time that week. We need to search the tunnel, I told him, thoroughly. I think there are human remains down here that were never recovered. You want to search a 100-year-old tunnel for body parts that have been there for 60 years? Yes. That's insane. I know. When do we start? The next day, I filed an official request for a full forensic search of the Worth Street tunnel. I had to justify it, which meant explaining about the radio transmissions, the voices, the witness testimony. My supervisor looked at me like I'd lost my mind. You want to search for a ghost, Price? I want to search for human remains that were never properly recovered. The fact that there are unexplained phenomena associated with the site is just additional justification. You know how much this is going to cost? How many work hours we'd have to shut down that tunnel? I know. He denied the request, told me to drop it, told me there were real cases that needed my attention. I nodded, said I understood, and went back to my desk. That night, I was back at Worth Street, with Gideon this time, and a third person, Eliza's granddaughter. I'd tracked her down through old records. Eliza had a daughter, just 5 years old when her mother died. That daughter had grown up, had kids of her own, and one of them, Jessica Kovarik, was willing to talk to me. She was 32, living in Brooklyn, working as a social worker. When I told her about what was happening at Worth Street, she didn't seem surprised. My grandmother always said there was something wrong with that place, Jessica told me. She said her mother never left, that she was still there, waiting. Your grandmother is still alive? In a memory care facility, dementia. She doesn't recognize anyone anymore, but sometimes she talks about her mother, says she can still hear her calling. Would you be willing to come to the station with me? I think Eliza might respond to family. She'd agreed. Now the three of us were standing on the platform at 2 a.m. waiting. This is crazy, Jessica said. You know that, right? Yeah, but I'm here anyway. I appreciate that. At 2:17, the radios crackled. That same static, that same voice. But this time, Jessica heard it too, even though she didn't have a radio. The voice came from everywhere at once. Bureau, can't breathe. Please. Grandma Eliza? Jessica's voice was shaking. Is that you? The static intensified. Then, clearer than I'd ever heard it before. Help. Me. Still. Here. Cold. We want to help you, Jessica said. But we don't know how. Where are you? Buried. Can't see. Dark. Gideon was moving along the platform, trying to triangulate where the signal was strongest. He stopped about 30 feet from the stairs near the old token booth. Here, he said. Signal's strongest here. We gathered around that spot. On the wall, behind years of grime, I could see cracks in the tiles. Old cracks, probably from decades of settling. But they formed a pattern, almost like someone had broken through the wall and then patched it badly. There, I said, behind the wall. We'd brought tools, pry bars, hammers, work gloves. Probably illegal to be doing this without authorization, but I was past caring about that. If I was wrong, I'd face the consequences. If I was right, Gideon and I started pulling away the loose tiles. They came off easily, decades of moisture having weakened the adhesive. Behind them was old brick, crumbling and water damaged. We pried at the bricks, and they came away in chunks. Behind the wall was a cavity, a space maybe 2 feet deep and 3 feet wide, and inside, barely visible in our flashlight beams, were bones. Small bones. Part of a hand, I thought. And a piece of skull, both wrapped in rotted fabric that had once been clothing. Jessica gasped. Is that? Yeah, I said quietly. I think it is. The radio crackled one last time. Not static now. Just a voice, clear and calm and infinitely tired. Thank you. Then silence. Complete silence. The kind of silence you never hear in the subway. No train rumble, no air movement, no distant voices. Just perfect, absolute quiet. The smell of flowers was gone. The cold that had always lingered on this platform was gone. Something had changed. Something had shifted. She's gone, Jessica whispered. "I can feel it. She's finally gone." We called it in. A forensic team came down and recovered the remains. DNA analysis confirmed they belonged to Eliza Kovarik. The ME's report stated that they'd probably been missed during the original cleanup because they'd fallen into a gap in the wall that had then been plastered over during subsequent repairs. They'd been there for 63 years, sealed in the dark, unable to rest. Jessica arranged for a proper burial. The remains were cremated and scattered in Central Park, which was apparently where Eliza used to take her daughter when she was young. A small memorial service was held. Fewer than 10 people attended, but it was more than Eliza had gotten the first time. After that, the calls stopped. No more reports of voices at Worth Street. No more unexplained radio transmissions. The platform went back to being just another forgotten space in the endless network of abandoned stations under the city. I filed my final report, marking the case closed. My supervisor read it, looked at me for a long moment and said, "I don't want to know how you really solved this. Probably for the best. Just tell me the calls stopped. They stopped. Good enough." But it wasn't over, not quite. 2 weeks after we recovered Eliza's remains, I was on routine patrol in the Canal Street station when I got a call from dispatch. "Price, we've got a report of someone on the tracks at the old 18th Street station. Can you respond?" 18th Street, another abandoned station. Closed in 1948. A place where, according to Gideon's stories, strange things had been reported for decades. I looked at my watch. 2:15 a.m. Copy that, en route. I met Gideon at the access point. He looked at me and I looked at him, and we both knew what the other was thinking. "Here we go again," he said. "Yeah." We descended into the tunnel. The 18th Street platform was older than Worth Street, the tile work more ornate, the decay more advanced. But it had the same feeling, the same waiting quality, like something was there watching us, hoping we'd notice. At 2:17 a.m., my radio crackled. A voice I didn't recognize. Male this time, older, frightened. "Hello? Can anyone hear me? I'm lost. I can't find the stairs. It's so dark. Please, I've been down here for so long. So long. Can anyone hear me?" Gideon looked at me. "You thinking what I'm thinking? That we're about to spend a lot of time in abandoned subway stations?" "Yeah." I keyed my radio. "We can hear you. We're here. Tell us your name." Thomas Brennan. I was waiting for a train and I don't know what happened. Everything went dark. How long have I been here? Do you know what year it is?" "It's 2024, I said gently. A long pause. When the voice came back, it was barely a whisper. That's not possible. I came down here in 1953. I was going to meet my wife. We were going to the theater. I was just waiting for the train and... Thomas, we're going to help you. Can you tell us where you are?" "I don't know. It's dark. I've been walking, but I can't find the way out. I'm so tired, so cold. Have you seen my wife? Her name is Dorothy. She'll be worried." Gideon was already looking up the archives on his phone. He showed me the screen. Thomas Brennan. Disappeared June 14th, 1953. Last seen entering the 18th Street station. Never found. "We're going to find you, Thomas," I said. "Just keep talking to us." We spent the next 3 hours searching that station. Found his remains eventually, in a service tunnel that had been sealed off in the 70s. He'd probably gotten disoriented in the dark, wandered into a restricted area and collapsed. Been there for 70 years while the city built itself up around him. We called it in. Another recovery. Another proper burial. Another voice that went silent once its owner was finally laid to rest. After that, I knew. This was going to keep happening. There were probably dozens of abandoned stations under this city, and probably dozens of people who'd died in them and been forgotten. Left in the dark, unable to move on, waiting for someone to find them. My supervisor tried to reassign me, told me I needed to focus on living crimes, not dead cases. But I refused, told him someone needed to do this. Someone needed to go down into those forgotten places and listen for the voices that nobody else heard. He eventually gave in. Created a new position, historical recovery specialist they called it. Sounded better than ghost hunter. Gideon transferred to work with me full-time. We became a team. The Transit Bureau's unofficial division for things that don't make it into official reports. Over the next year, we recovered remains from 7 different abandoned stations. Each one had a voice. Each one had a story. Some had been there for decades, others for nearly a century. All of them had been waiting, hoping someone would hear them. The calls keep coming. Every few weeks, dispatch gets a report of someone on the tracks at a closed station. And every time Gideon and I go down, we listen, we search, we find what's left behind. It's not the job I thought I'd be doing when I joined Transit Bureau, but it's the job that needs doing. Someone has to remember the forgotten. Someone has to hear the voices that no one else will listen to. Someone has to go into the dark places under the city and bring back what was lost. That's what we do now. That's who we are. The city keeps building over itself, layer upon layer, forgetting what's underneath. But we remember. We listen. We search. And when we hear a voice on the radio, crackling through decades of static, calling out from some dark platform that doesn't exist on any map, we respond. Always. Because down here, in the forgotten stations and sealed tunnels, the past isn't really past. It's still here, still waiting, still calling out for help. And as long as we can hear them, we'll keep answering. That's the job. That's the promise. Even if it means spending the rest of our careers descending into the dark, following the voices of the dead, bringing them back into the light one final time. It's what they deserve. It's what we all deserve. To be found, to be remembered, to finally go home. Last week, we got a call about the old City Hall station, the beautiful one with the vaulted ceilings and the Guastavino tile. It's been closed since 1945, but people still report seeing someone waiting on the platform. A woman in old-fashioned clothes checking her watch, looking for a train that will never come. We're going down tomorrow night at 2:17 a.m. to listen, to search, to find who's waiting in the dark. Because that's what we do. That's who we are now. The ones who answer when the forgotten call out. The ones who remember when everyone else forgets. The ones who go into the abandoned places and bring back what was lost. Station by station. Voice by voice. Until all of them are found. Until all of them can finally rest. That's the job, and we're just getting started. Staten Island is the forgotten borough. Most New Yorkers will tell you that. It's the place you pass through on your way to New Jersey, or the place you see from the ferry but never actually visit. 500,000 people live here, but to the rest of the city, it might as well not exist. I'm Officer Marcus Callahan. Born and raised in Staten Island, joined NYPD 12 years ago, and I've spent every single one of those years working the North Shore. I know every street, every corner, every sketchy apartment building and rundown strip mall. This is my home, and I chose to protect it even when everyone else forgot it existed. My partner for most of those 12 years was Danny Reeves. Good cop, better friend, the kind of guy who'd take a bullet for you without thinking twice. We'd been through everything together. Domestics that turned violent, drug busts that went sideways, foot chases through the projects at 3 a.m. We had that partnership where you don't need to talk to communicate. A look, a nod, and you know what the other person is thinking. This story is about the last call we ever responded to together. The one that ended Danny's career and nearly ended mine. The one that proved Staten Island isn't forgotten by everything, just by people. Some things remember. Some things have always been here, long before the city was built, and they're still here now, waiting in the dark places, calling out to anyone who will listen. It was October. Halloween was 2 days away, and the neighborhood kids were already getting rowdy. Smashed pumpkins on the streets, toilet paper in trees, the usual suburban mischief that we usually ignored unless it got out of hand. The weather had turned cold early that year. First frost came in mid-September, and by October, we were getting nights that felt more like December. Danny and I were working the 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. shift, the graveyard. We'd been doing it for so long that our bodies had adjusted. We were nocturnal creatures now, sleeping through the daylight hours, coming alive when the sun went down. Most people hate night shift, but we preferred it. Less supervision, more autonomy. And the city was different at night. Quieter. More honest, somehow. We'd just cleared from a noise complaint in New Brighton when the call came through. 2:37 a.m. The dispatcher's voice crackled over the radio, and I could hear something in her tone that made me pay attention. Not panic exactly, but something close to it. Unit 19, we have a 1053 at 2247 Victory Boulevard. Caller reports hearing someone calling for help from inside the premises. Possible person in distress. I grabbed the mic. Unit 19 responding. Can you give us more details on the caller? Caller is a neighbor at 2249 Victory Boulevard. States she's been hearing someone calling for help for the past 20 minutes. Sounds like a woman's voice. Caller is elderly and doesn't want to investigate herself. Danny was already pulling a U-turn, heading toward the Victory Boulevard. 2247. That's the old Richter place, isn't it? I pulled up the address on the MDT. Yeah, been vacant for, Jesus, 8 years? 9. Old man Richter died in 2014. House has been sitting empty ever since. Estate's tied up in probate or something. Someone's probably squatting. At 2 a.m. and calling for help. Might be hurt, could have broken in, fallen through rotten floorboards. Those old houses, you never know. We drove in silence for a few minutes. Victory Boulevard was empty at this hour. Streetlights casting long shadows across the wet pavement. It had rained earlier, and everything had that slick, reflective quality that makes night driving feel surreal. 2247. Victory Boulevard was a 2-story Victorian, one of those old houses that was probably beautiful back in the 1920s, but had fallen into serious disrepair. The paint was peeling, the shutters were hanging crooked, and several windows on the second floor were broken. The yard was overgrown with weeds that stood waist-high, and a rusty chain-link fence surrounded the property. A faded "for sale" sign leaned at an angle near the sidewalk, the real estate company's name barely visible. We pulled up in front. The house was completely dark, no lights on anywhere. The only illumination came from the street lamps and our headlights. "You see anything?" Danny asked. I scanned the windows. Nothing, no movement, no lights. Let's check with the neighbor first. We got out and walked to 2249, the house next door. It was a much nicer place, well maintained, with a tidy lawn and fresh paint. An elderly woman answered the door before we even knocked. She'd been watching for us through the window. "Officers, thank God. I'm Lorraine Kowalski. I'm the one who called." She was maybe 75, wearing a bathrobe and slippers, her gray hair in curlers. She looked genuinely frightened. "Ma'am, you said you heard someone calling for help." Yes, I was up watching TV. I don't sleep well anymore, and I heard it. A woman's voice coming from next door. She was calling, 'Help me. Please help me.' Over and over. It went on for at least 20 minutes before I called you. Do you still hear it now?" She listened for a moment, then shook her head. "No, it stopped a few minutes ago, but I definitely heard it. I'm not imagining things, officer." "We believe you, ma'am. Do you know if anyone's been going into that house? Squatters, homeless people, anything like that?" "Not that I've seen. The place has been empty for years. The bank owns it now, I think. Or the estate, I don't know. Nobody maintains it. Nobody comes around. I've been living here for 40 years, and that house has been nothing but trouble." "What kind of trouble?" She hesitated, glancing at the Richter house. "People used to see things. Before Mr. Richter died. Lights in the windows when nobody was home. Sounds, strange sounds. He was a recluse, kept to himself. But after he died, it got worse." "Worse how?" "Other people have gone in there. Kids mostly, daring each other. They never stay long. They come running out looking scared. One boy told me he heard voices. Another said he saw someone in the upstairs window watching him. But when he looked again, nobody was there." "Has anyone called the police about this before?" "A few times, but they never find anything. The house is empty. It's always been empty." We thanked her and walked back to the Richter house. The gate in the chain-link fence was padlocked, but the lock looked old and rusted. I gave it a pull, and it came apart in my hand. "So much for security," Danny muttered. We pushed through the gate and approached the front door. The porch creaked under our weight, and I had a moment of worry that we might fall through. But it held. The front door had a heavy deadbolt and a padlock through a hasp. Both were intact. "Let's check the back," I said. We walked around the side of the house, our flashlights cutting through the darkness. The weeds were thick here, brushing against our legs. I could hear small animals scurrying away from us. Rats, probably. Or possums. The back of the house was in even worse shape than the front. The back door was missing entirely, just a dark, rectangular opening leading into what looked like a kitchen. "There's our entry point," Danny said. "Could be how someone got in." We stood at the threshold, shining our lights inside. The kitchen was gutted. No appliances, no cabinets, just bare walls and a floor covered in debris. Water damage had caused the ceiling to sag, and I could see exposed beams through the holes. "Hello?" I called out. "NYPD, is anyone in here?" No response. Just the sound of wind whistling through the broken windows and our own breathing. "We're coming in," Danny announced. "If you need help, call out." We stepped inside. The smell hit me immediately. Mold, rot, damp wood, and something else underneath it all. Something organic and unpleasant. Like spoiled meat. I'd smelled it before at death scenes, but this wasn't quite the same. It was older, more pervasive. "Jesus, that's rank," Danny said, covering his nose. "Yeah, watch your step. Floor looks unstable." We moved through the kitchen into what had been a dining room. The hardwood floors were warped and buckling, scattered with chunks of fallen plaster from the ceiling. An old chandelier lay in pieces in the corner, its crystals dulled with grime. Our flashlights revealed walls covered in water stains and what might have been mold. "Anyone here?" I called again. "We're police officers. We're here to help." Still nothing. We checked the living room next. More of the same. Destroyed furniture, holes in the walls, everything covered in dust and debris. There was a fireplace with a broken mantel, and above it, a dark rectangle where a mirror or painting had once hung. "Let's check upstairs," Danny said. The staircase looked treacherous. Several steps were missing and the banister had collapsed. We tested each step before putting our full weight on it, taking it slow. The stairs groaned and creaked, but they held. The second floor was even worse than the first. The hallway was narrow and dark, lined with doors on both sides. Most were open, revealing empty rooms with peeling wallpaper and broken windows. We checked each one methodically. First room, empty. Second room, empty. Third room, empty. The fourth room was different. It was at the end of the hallway, and the door was closed. Not just closed, locked from the outside. There was a new-looking padlock on a hasp that had been screwed into the doorframe. Danny and I looked at each other. "That's new," he said. "Yeah, that's definitely new." I tried the lock. Solid. Not rusted like the others. This had been installed recently. Within the last few months, I'd guess. "Someone doesn't want people getting into this room," Danny said. "Or they don't want something getting out. Don't start with that horror movie shit, Marcus." But I could see he was thinking the same thing I was. Why would someone put a new lock on a door in an abandoned house? What was in there? "We need to open it," I said. "If someone's in there and hurt, I know. I'll get the bolt cutters." While Danny went back to the car, I stood in that hallway, listening. The house was making sounds. Old houses do that, especially ones in this condition. Wood settling, wind through the broken windows, pipes expanding and contracting. Normal sounds. But underneath those normal sounds, I heard something else. Faint, so faint, I almost missed it. A sound like breathing. Slow, rhythmic breathing, coming from behind that locked door. "Hello?" I called out. "Can you hear me? I'm a police officer. We're going to get you out." The breathing stopped. In its place, I heard a voice. Female, like the neighbor had said, but it didn't sound distressed. It sounded calm. Too calm. "Don't open the door." I froze. "Ma'am, are you hurt? Do you need medical assistance?" "Don't open the door, please. Don't let it out." "Don't let what out?" No response. Just silence. Heavy, oppressive silence that seemed to press against my eardrums. Danny came back up the stairs, breathing hard. "Got the cutters. You okay? You look pale." "Someone's in there. She told me not to open the door." "What? Why?" "She said not to let it out." Danny stared at the door. "Let what out?" "I don't know. Could be a dog or something. Maybe someone's keeping a dog in there." Maybe. But we both knew it wasn't a dog. The way she'd said it. The fear in her voice. Whatever was in that room, it wasn't a dog. "We still have to open it," Danny said. "Could be a hostage situation. Someone being held against their will." He was right. We had no choice. If someone was in there being held prisoner, we had to get them out. That was the job. Danny positioned the bolt cutters on the padlock, squeezed. The lock resisted for a moment, then snapped with a sharp crack that echoed through the empty house. He pulled the lock free and tossed it aside, then reached for the doorknob. "Ready?" "Yeah." He turned the knob and pushed the door open. The room beyond was completely empty. No furniture, no windows, no person. Just bare walls, and a bare floor, and a bare ceiling. Nothing. "What the hell?" Danny stepped inside, shining his flashlight around. "Where is she?" I followed him in. The room was maybe 10 by 12 feet, smaller than the others. There was nowhere to hide, no closet, no alcove, just empty space. "I heard her," I said. "I swear I heard a woman's voice." "I believe you. But she's not here." We checked the walls, looking for hidden doors or panels. Nothing. The floor was solid hardwood. No signs of a trapdoor. The ceiling was intact. The room was exactly what it appeared to be. An empty room in an abandoned house. Maybe it was someone in another room, Danny suggested. Sound carries weird in these old places. Maybe. But I didn't believe it. The voice had come from right here. Right behind this door, I was sure of it. We finished checking the rest of the second floor. All the rooms were empty. No signs that anyone had been here. No sleeping bags. No trash. No evidence of squatters. The house was genuinely abandoned. "Let's check the basement," Danny said. "Do we have to?" "If there's someone down there, I know. The basement entrance was off the kitchen. A door that opened onto wooden stairs descending into darkness. The smell was worse here, that organic rot smell. Much stronger. Danny went first, testing each stair before putting his weight on it. I followed close behind. The basement was large, running the full length of the house. It was unfinished, with a concrete floor and stone walls. There were old boxes stacked in one corner, their contents long since dissolved into mush. A rusted water heater stood in another corner, leaking rust-colored water onto the floor. And against the far wall, partially hidden by shadows, was a well. Not a modern well, an old one. Really old. Made of stacked stones, maybe 4 feet across, with a wooden cover that had mostly rotted away. I could see the dark circle of the opening, and as we approached, I felt cold air rising from it. Damp, stagnant air that smelled of earth and decay. "That's an old well," Danny said. "Probably dates back to when the house was built, before they had city water. How deep do you think it is?" "No idea. Could be 40 feet, could be 100. I shined my flashlight down into it. The beam disappeared into blackness. I couldn't see the bottom. "You think someone could be down there?" I asked. "Stuck in a well? I mean, it's possible. But how would they get down there?" "Fell in. The cover was on, mostly. They'd have to move it, then fall in, then I don't know. Doesn't make sense." But we had to check. Danny called down into the well. "Hello? Can anyone hear me? NYPD. If you're down there, make a sound." We listened, heard nothing for a long moment. Then, faint and distant, echoing up from the depths of that old well, we heard it. "Help me. Please. I'm so cold." Danny and I looked at each other. His face had gone pale. "Someone's down there," he said. "Yeah. How the hell did they get down there?" "I don't know, but we need to get them out." We called it in. Requested fire rescue with rope equipment and a ladder truck. Then we went back down to the basement to keep talking to whoever was in that well, keep them calm, let them know help was coming. "We've called for help," I shouted down. "Fire department's on the way. Just hang on. What's your name?" No response. "Can you tell me your name?" I tried again. "Are you hurt?" Still nothing. I was starting to think maybe we'd imagined it when the voice came back. Different this time. Not asking for help. Just talking. Calm and conversational. "Do you know what this house is built on?" Danny and I looked at each other. "Ma'am, we need to know if you're injured," I said. "It's built on a grave. A very old grave. Hundreds of years old. Long before the Dutch came. Before the Europeans. The people who lived here first, they knew this was a bad place. They knew not to build here, but we forgot. We always forget. Ma'am, help is coming. Just stay calm. There's something down here with me. It's been here for a long time. It's hungry, so hungry. It wants out. Ma'am, don't let it out. When they pull me up, don't let it out. Promise me." The voice had changed. It sounded terrified now. Desperate. Not calm at all. "We're going to get you out," Danny said. "Just hold on." "No. You don't understand. If you pull me up, it comes with me. It's attached to me now. It's been feeding on me. If you bring me up, it gets out. You can't let that happen." "Ma'am, you're not making sense. You're probably hypothermic. You're confused. We're going to get you medical attention. Leave me here. Please, for the love of God, leave me here and seal the well. Pour concrete down it, fill it in. Don't let it out." Then she started screaming. Not words, just screaming. High-pitched and horrible, echoing up from the depths of that well. Screaming and screaming and screaming. Danny grabbed his radio. "Unit 19, expedite that rescue. We have someone in severe distress." The screaming stopped. Sudden silence. We waited, listening. Nothing, not even breathing. "Hello?" I called down. "Can you hear me?" No response. "Ma'am, please respond." Nothing. We stood there in that cold basement, staring down into that dark well, and I felt something I hadn't felt in 12 years on the force. Real fear. Not the adrenaline rush of a dangerous situation. Not the healthy caution of approaching a domestic dispute. Real, primal fear. The kind that tells you you're in the presence of something wrong. Something that shouldn't be. The fire department arrived 20 minutes later. 4 trucks, 24 firefighters, all the rope rescue equipment they could bring. The incident commander, Chief Brennan, came down to the basement to assess the situation. "You're sure there's someone down there?" he asked. "We heard her," Danny said. Clear as day, woman's voice calling for help. Brennan shined his flashlight down into the well. The beam still couldn't reach the bottom. "This is going to be tricky. We don't know how deep it is, if the walls are stable, if there's water at the bottom. I'll need to send someone down to assess." "She said she was cold," I told him. "Might be hypothermic, and she was saying some strange things, talking about something being down there with her." Brennan looked at me. "What kind of something?" "She didn't say, just kept saying not to let it out. Probably hallucinating. Hypothermia does that. Makes people confused, paranoid." He turned to his crew. "Let's get the harness and rope system set up. Martinez, you're lightest. You're going down." It took them 30 minutes to set up the rope system. They secured it to the ceiling beams, ran it through pulleys, set up a belay system. Martinez, a young firefighter who didn't look old enough to shave, got into the harness and clipped onto the rope. They gave him a radio, a flashlight, and a rescue collar in case the victim was unconscious. "All right, Martinez," Brennan said. "We're going to lower you slow. You call out every 10 feet, let us know what you're seeing. If anything feels wrong, you yell and we pull you up. Got it?" "Got it, Chief." They started lowering him. The rope played out smoothly through the pulleys. 10 feet, 20 feet, 30 feet. Martinez's flashlight beam got smaller and smaller as he descended into the darkness. 40 feet, Martinez called up. "Still going. No bottom yet." 50 feet, 60 feet, 70 feet. "This thing is deep," Brennan muttered. "Really deep." 80 feet. "Wait, I see something. Looks like—" "Oh, Christ." The radio went silent. "Martinez, what do you see?" "Chief, you need to pull me up, now." "What's down there?" Pull me up now." The rope went taut. Something was pulling on it from below. Hard. The belay team struggled to hold it. "Jesus, what the hell?" one of them shouted. "It's like he's caught on something." "Pull," Brennan ordered. "Everyone pull." 6 firefighters grabbed the rope and pulled. Slowly, inch by inch, they hauled Martinez back up. It took them 5 minutes to raise him the 80 feet. When his head finally appeared over the edge of the well, he was screaming. They pulled him out and he collapsed on the basement floor, shaking and sobbing. His face was covered in scratches, deep scratches, like something with claws had raked his face. His harness was torn in several places. "What happened down there?" Brennan demanded. Martinez was hyperventilating, unable to speak. One of the paramedics knelt beside him, checking his vitals, trying to calm him down. Finally, after several minutes, he was able to talk. "There's a woman down there, at the bottom. She's dead. Been dead a long time. Weeks, maybe months, but she was moving. Her body was moving, and there was something else. Something behind her, in the shadows. I couldn't see it clearly, but it was big, and when I shined my light on it, it reached for me, grabbed my harness, started pulling me down." "You're saying something grabbed you?" "I'm saying something tried to drag me into that darkness. Something that wasn't human. It had too many arms. Or tentacles, I don't know. I couldn't see it clearly. But it was real, Chief. It was fucking real." Nobody said anything for a moment. We all just stood there looking at each other, trying to process what Martinez had just said. Brennan made a decision. "We're sealing this well, right now. Nobody else goes down. Whatever's down there stays down there." "But the woman," I started, "is dead, according to Martinez. And even if she's not, I'm not sending anyone else down there. This is above our pay grade." He pulled out his phone. "I'm calling the police commissioner's office. Let them figure out what to do." Danny and I went back upstairs while the fire department worked on covering the well. We stood in the backyard, breathing fresh air, trying to make sense of what had just happened. "That was fucked up," Danny said. "Yeah." "You believe Martinez about something grabbing him? You see his face, those scratches? Something did that? Could have been rusty metal, old debris in the well. Could have been." But we both knew it wasn't. We'd heard the terror in Martinez's voice, seen the way he'd looked when they pulled him up. He'd seen something down there, something that scared him so badly he'd probably have nightmares for the rest of his life. My radio crackled. "Unit 19, return to the station. Sergeant wants to see you." We drove back in silence. The sun was starting to come up, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. After a night like that, the sunrise felt wrong. Too normal, too beautiful. Like the world hadn't changed when everything had changed. At the station, Sergeant Morrison was waiting for us. He'd been on the force for 25 years, seen everything, and nothing rattled him. But he looked concerned now. "I got a call from the fire chief," he said. "Told me what happened at the Richter house, what Martinez saw." "Yes, sir," I said. "He also told me this isn't the first time there's been trouble at that location." I pulled the records. There have been 17 calls to that address in the past 9 years. All of them reporting sounds, voices, lights in the windows. Every time we responded, we found nothing. "The house is empty, sir. We cleared every room." "I know. That's what every report says. But people keep calling, people keep hearing things. And now we've got a possible body in a well and a firefighter claiming something attacked him." He leaned back in his chair. "I'm taking you both off patrol for the rest of the week. You're going to work with the detective squad on this, figure out what the hell is going on at that house." "You want us to investigate a haunted house?" Danny asked. "I want you to investigate a crime scene. If there's a body in that well, it's a homicide until proven otherwise. And if someone put her there, I want to know who and why." "Fair enough." We spent the rest of that day getting briefed by the detective squad. They'd requested a warrant to search the property and had brought in a specialized recovery team to deal with the well. They weren't going to send anyone down. Instead, they were going to use a remote camera to see what was at the bottom. I went home, tried to sleep, but couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that dark opening in the basement floor. Heard that voice calling up from the depths. "Don't let it out." What was down there? What had grabbed Martinez? And who was the dead woman? I got up, made coffee, and started doing my own research. pulled up everything I could find about 2247 Victory Boulevard. Property records, historical archives, old newspaper articles. What I found made my blood run cold. The house had been built in 1887 by a man named Cornelius Richter. He'd been a wealthy merchant, owned several ships, made his fortune in the tea trade. But he'd gone bankrupt in 1893 during the financial panic. Lost everything. His wife died shortly after, and he lived alone in that house for the next 40 years. In 1933, he'd been arrested for murder. The victim was a young woman, a housemaid he'd employed. She'd disappeared, and when police searched the house, they found evidence suggesting she'd been killed there. But they never found her body. Cornelius claimed she'd run away, that he was innocent. But there was blood, lots of blood, and no other explanation that made sense. He was convicted and sentenced to death, hanged in 1934. The house had sat empty for a few years, then was sold to a new family. They'd lived there for less than a year before moving out, claiming the house was haunted. It had changed hands several more times over the decades, but nobody ever stayed long. The last owner, Edward Richter, was Cornelius's great-grandson. He'd inherited the house in 2006 and lived there alone until his death in 2014. Neighbors said he was a recluse, never had visitors, rarely came outside. When he died, they found him in his bedroom, dead of natural causes. But the house had been a nightmare inside. Hoarding, neglect, years of accumulated garbage and filth. And according to the police report from 2014, when they'd cleared the house after Edward's death, they'd found something in the basement. Notes, journal entries. Edward had been obsessed with the well. He'd written hundreds of pages about it, about voices he heard coming from it, about something living down there that whispered to him at night. The last entry, dated a week before his death, read, "It's getting stronger. I can feel it pushing against the barrier. It wants out. It's been trapped for so long. I try to feed it, to keep it satisfied, but it's never enough. It's always hungry. I don't know how much longer I can keep it contained. God forgive me for what I've done. God forgive me for what I might do." I stared at those words on my laptop screen. Feed it. Keep it contained. What had Edward Richter been doing in that house? The next day, Danny and I met the detective squad at the Richter house. There were a dozen cops there now, plus the specialized recovery team with their remote camera equipment. Crime scene tapes surrounded the property. News vans were already setting up across the street. Detective Helen Vasquez was running the investigation. She was 45, sharp as hell, with a reputation for closing impossible cases. She briefed us in the front yard. The camera went down this morning, got footage of the bottom. There is a body down there. Female, advanced decomposition. Medical examiner estimates she's been dead at least 6 months, possibly longer. We can't identify her visually, but we're going to have to recover the remains for proper analysis. "How deep is it?" I asked. 93 feet. That's deeper than any well should be, and here's the weird part. The bottom isn't natural. It's been excavated. Someone dug that well deeper than it needed to be. Much deeper. Why would someone do that? That's what we're trying to figure out. She pulled out her phone, showed us photos from the camera. They were grainy, dark, but I could make out a shape at the bottom. A woman's body lying on its side. Her clothes were rotted, her skin darkened with decay, but she was definitely there. "Did the camera pick up anything else?" Danny asked. Martinez said he saw something that grabbed him. Vasquez's expression darkened. "We reviewed the footage frame by frame. There's something in the shadows behind the body. The camera couldn't get a clear image. It's like the shadows themselves are moving. Like there's something there that doesn't want to be seen. What do you mean the shadows are moving? I mean exactly that. Watch. She pulled up a video on her phone. The footage was dark, the camera's light barely penetrating the gloom. At the bottom of the well, I could see the woman's body, and behind it, the shadows. At first, they looked like normal shadows, just darkness where the light didn't reach. But as I watched, they shifted, moved. Not like shadows cast by something moving, like the shadows themselves were alive. Jesus, Danny whispered. We sent the footage to a video analysis team, Vasquez said. They can't explain it. Said it might be a camera malfunction, but I don't think so. I think there's something down there. Something we don't understand. So, what's the plan? We're not recovering the body. Not yet. Not until we know what we're dealing with. In the meantime, I want you two to canvass the neighborhood. Find out if anyone saw anything suspicious in the past year. Anyone going into the house, anyone hanging around. If someone put that woman down there, they had to access the property somehow. Danny and I spent the next 2 days knocking on doors. Most people didn't know anything. The Richter house had been abandoned for so long that nobody paid attention to it anymore. But a few people had noticed things. A teenager 3 houses down said he'd seen lights in the house about 8 months ago, late at night, around 2 or 3 a.m. Flickering lights in the basement windows. An older couple across the street said they'd seen someone going into the house around the same time. They couldn't describe the person clearly, said it was too dark, but they remembered thinking it was odd because the house was supposed to be empty. And Lorraine Kowalski, the neighbor who'd called us, told us something that made my skin crawl. She said that about a year ago, she'd been up late and heard someone crying in the Richter house. A woman crying. It had gone on for hours. She'd almost called the police but didn't because she thought maybe she was imagining it. After all, the house was empty. Nobody could be crying in an empty house. Except someone had been. A woman who was now dead at the bottom of a well. We compiled all the information and brought it back to Vasquez. She was in the basement of the Richter house, examining the well. The fire department had built a sturdy cover for it, bolted it down, but you could still feel the cold air rising from it. We need to identify the victim, Vasquez said. Until we know who she is, we can't figure out who put her there. What about missing persons reports? I asked. We're checking, but there are thousands of missing persons in the New York area. It could take weeks to go through them all. What about dental records? We'd need to recover the body for that, and I'm not sending anyone down there. So, what do? She looked at the well. We wait. See if anyone reports her missing. See if any evidence turns up. In the meantime, this house is a crime scene. Nobody goes in or out without authorization. But that night, someone did go in. Someone who wasn't authorized. Someone who wanted to finish what they'd started. I was at home, finally getting some sleep, when my phone rang. 3:17 a.m., Vasquez. Callahan, get to the Richter house, now. What happened? Fire. Someone torched it. I was there in 15 minutes. The fire department had already knocked down the flames, but the house was destroyed. The entire first floor was gutted. The second floor had partially collapsed, and smoke was still rising from the ruins. Fire investigators were already on scene, along with half the department. Vasquez met me by the police tape. Her face was covered in soot. It was arson, she said. Accelerant poured throughout the first floor and ignited. Whoever did it wanted to destroy any evidence. The basement? Partially intact. The well is still there, but everything else is gone. Any sign of the arsonist? We're checking security cameras in the area, but whoever did it knew what they were doing. They got in and out fast. Danny arrived a few minutes later. We stood together, watching the firefighters work, watching the smoke rise into the pre-dawn sky. The house that had stood for over a century was gone, reduced to blackened timber and ash. "Someone doesn't want us finding out what happened here," Danny said. "Yeah, which means we're getting close to something." The fire investigation took 3 days. They confirmed it was arson, confirmed the accelerant was gasoline, but they couldn't find any evidence pointing to a specific suspect. No fingerprints, no DNA, no witness who'd seen anyone in the area. But on the 3rd day, something else happened. A woman came forward, walked into the station and asked to speak to whoever was investigating the Richter house. Her name was Margaret Preston. She was 38, worked as a social worker, lived in Manhattan, and she was looking for her sister. "Her name is Diane Preston," Margaret told us. "She was sitting in an interview room with Vasquez, Danny, and me. She disappeared 10 months ago. I filed a missing persons report, but nothing ever came of it." "Tell us about Diane," Vasquez said gently. "She was troubled, struggled with addiction, in and out of rehab. She'd been clean for 6 months when she disappeared, was doing really well, had a job, her own apartment, but then she stopped answering my calls. When I went to her apartment, the landlord said she'd moved out without notice, just left one day and never came back. I tried to find her, but it was like she'd vanished." "What makes you think she might be connected to the Richter house?" Margaret pulled out her phone, showed us a photo. "This was taken from her Instagram 2 weeks before she disappeared. Look at the background." The photo showed Diane smiling at the camera, taking a selfie. She was pretty, with dark hair and kind eyes, but behind her, partially visible in the background, was a house. A Victorian house with peeling paint and broken windows. The Richter house. "Where was this taken?" Vasquez asked. "I don't know. She didn't tag the location, but I recognized the house from the news reports. I've been following the case. When I saw that house on TV, I knew. I knew it was the same one." "Did Diane ever mention the house? Ever say why she was there?" "No. I didn't even know she'd been to Staten Island. She lived in Manhattan, worked in the city. I don't know why she would have been out here. But I had an idea. I pulled out my laptop, accessed the missing persons database, cross-referenced with the dates, found Diane Preston's file. She'd been reported missing on January 15th of this year, last seen on January 3rd, and on December 20th of last year, she'd been admitted to a hospital in Staten Island for a suicide attempt. The hospital had referred her to a counselor. The counselor's name was Edward Richter. "Oh my God," I said. "Edward Richter was a counselor?" Vasquez pulled up Richter's background. He'd worked as a substance abuse counselor for 20 years before retiring in 2010. Had his own practice, saw patients privately. "He was still seeing patients," I said, "even after he retired. Operating without a license, probably. Diane was struggling with addiction. She might have come to him for help. And he killed her?" Margaret looked horrified. "Why? Why would he kill her?" That was the question. Why would an elderly man, a counselor who'd spent his career helping people, suddenly murder one of his patients? Unless it wasn't sudden. Unless he'd been doing it for a long time. We went back through Edward Richter's history, cross-referenced his patient records with missing persons reports, found 3 other women who'd disappeared after seeing him for counseling. All of them addicts. All of them vulnerable. All of them with no close family to push for investigations when they vanished. He was targeting them, Vasquez said. Women who wouldn't be missed, who people would assume had relapsed, run away, or worse. But why? And what does the well have to do with it? That night, I couldn't sleep again. I kept thinking about Edward Richter's journal entries. "It wants out. I try to feed it. It's always hungry." Feed it? Was that what he'd been doing? Feeding something in that well? Throwing bodies down there? I called Vasquez's. 4 a.m. She answered immediately. She wasn't sleeping either. I need to see Edward Richter's journals, I said. All of them. Everything he wrote about the well. They're in evidence. I can get you access tomorrow. Now. I need them now. She must have heard something in my voice because she didn't argue. I'll meet you at the station in 30 minutes. The journals were extensive. Hundreds of pages written in Edward's neat, careful handwriting. They started in 2006, when he inherited the house, and continued until a week before his death. I read them all. It took me 6 hours, but I read every word, and by the time I finished, I understood. Edward Richter had inherited more than a house. He'd inherited a responsibility. His great-grandfather, Cornelius, the one who'd been hanged for murder, hadn't just killed that housemaid. He'd thrown her body down the well. And that's when it had started. Something in that well had awakened. Something that had been there long before the house, long before the Europeans, long before anyone. Cornelius had tried to contain it. Built barriers, performed rituals he'd learned from books on the occult. But it kept growing stronger, kept demanding more. So he'd fed it, found other victims, women who wouldn't be missed. Killed them and threw their bodies down the well. When Cornelius died, the thing had gone dormant. But it didn't die. It waited. For decades, it waited. And when Edward Richter moved into that house, it woke up, started calling to him, whispering, demanding. Edward had tried to resist. For years, he'd fought it, but eventually, it wore him down. The whispers became screams. The demands became threats. It told him that if he didn't feed it, it would break free, would climb out of that well and consume everything. The whole city. Everyone. So Edward had fed it, just like his great-grandfather. Found vulnerable women. Lured them to the house, killed them, threw them into the well. The last entry in his journal was dated a week before his death. I can't do it anymore. Can't keep feeding it, can't keep killing, but I can't let it out either. I've decided. Tomorrow, I'll seal the well with concrete. Pour the whole foundation full. Trap it forever. Even if it means trapping all those women with it. Even if it means their families never get closure. It's the only way, and when it's sealed, I'll end this. I'll take the pills the doctor gave me, all of them, and I'll go to sleep and never wake up. Maybe that will be enough. Maybe my death will satisfy it. Or maybe it will just make it angrier. I don't know anymore. I don't care. I just want it to end. But Edward had died before he could seal the well. Heart attack, the ME said. Natural causes. But I wondered, had it been natural, or had the thing in the well killed him, stopped him from sealing it in? I showed the journals to Vasquez. She read them, her face getting paler with each page. This is insane, she said. He's describing, what, a monster? A demon? I don't know what it is, but I know it's real. Martinez saw it. The camera caught it, and Diane Preston is dead because of it. So what do? We finish what Edward Richter started. We seal that well. The house burned down. The basement is exposed. We could pour concrete. It won't be enough. That thing has been down there for centuries. It's strong. We need to do more than just seal it. We need to destroy it. How do you destroy something like that? I didn't have an answer, but I knew someone who might. Father Michael Brennan was a Catholic priest at a church in Staten Island. He was also an exorcist, one of the few officially sanctioned by the church. I'd met him years ago during a case involving a possible possession. Turned out to be mental illness, not demons, but we'd stayed in touch. I called him, explained the situation. He listened without interrupting, and when I finished, he was quiet for a long moment. "You're describing something very old," he said finally. "Something that predates Christianity. Native American tribes in this area had stories about spirits that lived in the earth. Hungry spirits that demanded sacrifice. The Lenape called them Matantowak, the Devourers. Can you help us? I can try, but this isn't a simple exorcism. This is something else entirely. I'll need time to prepare, and I'll need access to the site. How much time? 2 days, maybe 3. We don't have 3 days. The house burned down. The well is exposed. Whatever's down there, it's closer to getting out than it's ever been. Then we'll have to work fast." Father Brennan arrived the next day with 2 other priests and several large cases of equipment. Holy water, blessed salt, sacred oils, and a thick leather-bound book that looked like it was older than the country. Vasquez had secured the site. No media, no civilians, just cops and firefighters. The ruins of the Richter house smoldered in the morning light. The basement was a pit of ash and debris, but the well was still there, still intact, still open. "That's it?" Father Brennan asked, looking down at the well. "That's it." He made the sign of the cross and approached cautiously. The other 2 priests followed, carrying their cases. They set up around the well, forming a triangle. Brennan opened his book and began to read in Latin. I don't speak Latin, but I understood the tone. This was a prayer, a ward, an attempt to contain whatever was down there. For the first few minutes, nothing happened. Then the temperature dropped. Fast. 1 second, it was a cool October morning. The next, it was freezing. Ice formed on the edges of the well. Our breath came out in thick white clouds. "It knows we're here," Brennan said. "It doesn't like what we're doing. Can you seal it?" "I'm trying, but it's strong, very strong." The ground began to shake. Not an earthquake. Something else. Something localized, centered on the well. Cracks appeared in the concrete floor of the basement. The ruins of the house groaned and shifted. "Everyone back!" Vasquez shouted. "Get away from the well!" But the priests didn't move. They kept chanting, reading from their books, sprinkling holy water around the perimeter. Brennan's voice got louder, more forceful. He was shouting now, commanding whatever was down there to return to the depths, to release its hold on this world. Something screamed, not a human scream, an animal sound, a sound of rage and hunger. It came from the well, echoing up from the depths so loud it felt like it would split the earth. Then the shadows came. They poured out of the well like smoke. Black, writhing shadows that defied physics. They weren't cast by anything. They were solid, substantial, alive. They spread across the basement floor, reaching for us, reaching for the priests. "Hold the line!" Brennan shouted. "Don't let them pass the salt!" The priests had formed a circle of salt around themselves and the well. The shadows hit that barrier and recoiled, unable to cross. But they kept trying, probing for weaknesses, pushing against the salt line. One of them found a gap. A spot where the salt had been disturbed by the shaking ground. It slipped through and wrapped around the ankle of the younger priest. He screamed, fell to his knees. The shadow pulled him toward the well. Danny and I rushed forward, grabbed the priest, tried to pull him back. But the shadow was strong. Impossibly strong. It felt like we were pulling against a cable attached to a truck. "Blessed salt!" Brennan shouted. "Pour it on the shadow!" The third priest grabbed a container of salt, poured it over the shadow. It hissed and released its grip. The young priest scrambled back behind the salt line. His ankle burned and blistered where the shadow had touched him. Brennan redoubled his efforts. His voice rose above the screaming wind, above the grinding of the earth, above the inhuman shrieks coming from the well. He held his crucifix high and commanded the thing to return to the abyss. And slowly, incredibly, it worked. The shadows began to retreat. They pulled back toward the well, fighting every inch, but retreating nonetheless. The screaming got louder, more desperate. The ground shook harder, but the shadows kept receding. Finally, with one last ear-splitting shriek, they disappeared back into the well. The shaking stopped. The temperature returned to normal. Everything went quiet. Brennan was sweating, breathing hard. Now, we seal it now. How? Fire and concrete. We burn it, then we bury it. It's the only way. We called in a construction crew. They brought concrete mixers, rebar, everything needed to fill a 93-foot well. But first, we had to burn it. We poured gasoline down the well, gallons of it. Let it run all the way to the bottom. Then Brennan said a final prayer, blessed the opening, and dropped a lit flare into the darkness. The well erupted in flames. Fire roared up from the depths, a column of flame 30 feet high. It burned for 6 hours. We could hear things screaming down there. Could hear the sound of something dying, something ancient and evil finally being destroyed. When the flames finally died down, we filled it with concrete. Tons of it. We didn't stop until the well was completely filled, level with the basement floor. Then we poured more concrete over that, creating a solid slab 6 feet thick. When it was done, Father Brennan blessed the site one more time. Then he turned to me. "It's over. That thing is gone, dead. But you should tear down what's left of this house. Salt the earth. Nothing good will ever grow here." "Will do, Father. Thank you." He shook my hand. "Thank you for calling me. If you hadn't, that thing might have gotten out. And God help us all if that had happened." The city condemned what was left of the Richter house, tore it down to the foundation. We buried everything, then covered the whole lot with 6 feet of clean dirt, put up a chain-link fence around it and left it empty. Diane Preston's remains were recovered before we sealed the well. Margaret was able to give her sister a proper burial. She thanked us, said it gave her closure. But I could see in her eyes that she'd never really be okay. Knowing what happened to her sister, how she died, who killed her. Some things you don't recover from. We found evidence of 3 other victims in the well. Pieces of bodies, fragments of bone. We couldn't identify them all, but we notified the families of the missing women we suspected were Edward Richter's victims. Some got closure, some didn't. That's how it goes sometimes. The department gave us commendations. Danny and I were both promoted to detective. Vasquez moved to a better position in Manhattan. Father Brennan went back to his church. Probably went back to performing routine exorcisms on suburban kids who played with Ouija boards. Everything went back to normal. Except it didn't. Not really. Because I still hear it sometimes. Late at night when the city is quiet. A voice calling from somewhere deep and dark. A woman's voice asking for help. Asking not to be forgotten. Asking to be found. Danny hears it too. We don't talk about it. Don't acknowledge it. But I know he hears it because sometimes, late at night, I'll see him looking toward Victory Boulevard, looking toward where the Richter house used to be, listening. Martinez, the firefighter who went down the well, quit the department, moved upstate. Last I heard, he was working in a hardware store, far from any wells, far from any dark places. I hope he's doing okay. I hope he doesn't hear the voices. The lot where the Richter house stood is still empty. The city owns it but hasn't done anything with it. Probably never will. Some places should just be left alone. Some ground is too poisoned, too cursed, too full of bad memories to ever be reclaimed. I drive past it sometimes, on my patrols, when I'm working nights. Can't help myself. I always slow down, look at that empty lot, that chain-link fence, that freshly turned earth. And I wonder, is it really over? Is that thing really dead? Or is it just dormant, waiting, gathering strength for another attempt at freedom. I don't know. I hope I never find out. But sometimes, when the moon is dark and the air is cold, I hear something. A scratching sound. Like something clawing at concrete. Like something trying to dig its way up from deep underground. And on those nights, I drive a little faster. Turn up the radio. Try not to think about what might be down there, 93 feet below the earth, trapped in concrete and fire-scorched stone. Try not to think about how long concrete lasts. How eventually, even the strongest barriers crumble and fail. Try not to think about what will happen when that day comes. But I do think about it. Every night. Every patrol. Every time I hear a distant sound that might be wind, might be imagination, might be something else entirely. I think about Diane Preston and those other women. About how they died alone in the dark. Fed to something that should never have existed. About how their screams were heard only by the thing that consumed them. I think about Edward Richter, trapped between his conscience and his fear, doing terrible things to prevent something worse. I wonder if he's at peace now, or if he's somewhere down there in the dark with his victims, paying for his sins in ways I can't imagine. I think about Cornelius Richter, the man who started it all, who found something in that well and made a deal with it, who fed it and contained it and passed that burden down to his descendants. I wonder what he saw down there, what it promised him, what it cost him. And I think about the Lenape, the people who were here first, the ones who knew this was a bad place, the ones who had stories about hungry spirits that lived in the earth. They knew. They tried to warn us. But we didn't listen. We never listen. 3 months after we sealed the well, a homeless man was found dead on the lot. No visible cause of death. No signs of injury or illness. He just died. The ME ruled it sudden cardiac arrest, but the man was only 35 and in good health. I went to the scene, looked at where they'd found him. He was lying right over where the well used to be. Right over that 6-foot-thick concrete slab we'd poured. And his face was frozen in a scream. Eyes wide open, mouth stretched in terror like he'd seen something in his last moments that scared him literally to death. They took the body away. I filed a report. Nobody made the connection except me. Nobody wanted to admit that maybe we hadn't finished the job. Maybe we'd just delayed the inevitable. A week later, there was another one. A woman this time, found in the same spot. Same lack of visible cause, same expression of terror. The city put up new fencing, better locks, security cameras. But people kept getting in, and people kept dying. Not many, one every few weeks. But enough to form a pattern, enough to make me wonder. I went back to see Father Brennan, told him what was happening. He came back to the site, performed another blessing, another warding ritual. But I could see in his face that he was worried. The seal is holding, he told me. But something is pushing against it, testing it, looking for weaknesses. Can it break through? Not yet, maybe not ever. But it's trying, and it will never stop trying. So what do? We watch, we wait. We reinforce the seal when needed. And we pray that it holds. That was 6 months ago. The deaths have stopped, for now. The lot is quiet. But I still patrol past it every night. Still watch. Still listen. Because I made a promise, even if it was just to myself. I promised those women that they wouldn't be forgotten. That someone would remember what happened to them, would honor their memory, would make sure it never happened again. So I watched that empty lot, that poisoned ground, that sealed well with its tons of concrete and its dying monster. I watch, and I wait, and I hope that Father Brennan was right, that the seal will hold, that the thing down there will die, if it isn't dead already, that eventually the earth will reclaim that cursed place and turn it into something clean again. But I don't really believe it. Because some things don't die. Some things are too old, too strong, too fundamental to the nature of the universe. They just sleep, they wait, they bide their time, and when enough time has passed, when we've forgotten about them and let our guard down, they'll wake up again. They'll call out from the dark places. They'll demand to be fed. They'll promise power and knowledge to anyone desperate or foolish enough to listen. And someone will listen. Someone always does. That's the real horror. Not the monster in the well, not the dead women or the cursed house or the thing that grabbed Martinez. The real horror is knowing that humans will always make deals with monsters, will always sacrifice others to save themselves, will always believe they can control forces they don't understand. The real horror is knowing that this has happened before and will happen again. That there are other wells, other dark places, other hungry spirits, and that we'll keep feeding them one way or another, because that's what we do. That's what we've always done. I carry this knowledge with me every day, every shift, every patrol. I see the city differently now. See the darkness underneath the lights. See the old places where ancient things still dwell. See the patterns of death and disappearance that point to something unnatural at work. And I know I'm not the only one. There are others like me. Cops and firefighters and priests and ordinary people who've seen things they can't explain. Who've looked into the dark and had it look back. Who carry the weight of that knowledge, that responsibility, that burden. We don't talk about it much. Don't form support groups or swap stories. We just do our jobs. Keep watch. Try to keep the normal people safe from the things that shouldn't exist but do. It's not much, it's not enough, but it's what we can do, and maybe that has to be enough. Danny understands. He's changed, too, since that night. He's quieter now, more careful. He watches the shadows more closely, listens more carefully to the calls we respond to, tries to hear what's being said between the words. We don't talk about it. Don't need to. We both know what we saw, what we felt, what we barely survived, and we both know it's not over. Not really. It's just paused, waiting for the next chapter, the next call, the next dark place that needs investigating. Last week, we got a call about sounds coming from an abandoned factory in Port Richmond. Multiple neighbors reporting screams, voices, something that sounded like chanting. We responded, checked it out, found nothing, just an empty building with broken windows and graffiti. But as we were leaving, I heard something. Faint, barely audible. Coming from the basement. A voice calling for help. A woman's voice. Danny heard it too. We looked at each other, looked at that basement door, looked at the darkness beyond it, and we went down. Because that's the job. Because someone has to answer when the voices call out from the dark. Because if we don't, who will? We found nothing. The basement was empty, but the voice was real. We both heard it, and we both know we'll be back. That there's something there, something waiting, something that wants to be found. That's how it works. That's how it always works. The darkness calls out, and we answer. We investigate. We try to help. And sometimes, if we're lucky, we survive to tell the tale. But sometimes we don't. Sometimes the darkness wins. Sometimes the things in the dark places get what they want. And we have to live with that, have to accept that we can't save everyone, can't seal every well, can't destroy every monster. All we can do is try, show up, answer the call, face the darkness with flashlights and prayers and whatever courage we can muster. It's not heroic. It's not glorious. It's just the job. The last call that never really ends. The investigation that continues every night, every shift, every time the radio crackles and a voice says there's something wrong, something strange, something that doesn't make sense. We respond. We always respond because that's what we do. That's who we are. The ones who answer the last call, who go into the dark places, who try to help when everyone else turns away. It's not enough, but it's all we have. And maybe, just maybe, it's enough to keep the monsters at bay for one more day, one more week, one more year. Until the next call comes. The next well opens. The next darkness calls out for someone to feed it. And when that happens, we'll be there, ready or not, prepared or not, scared or not. We'll be there because someone has to be. Someone has to stand between the dark and the light, between the monsters and the innocents, between what is and what should never be. That's the job, that's the burden, that's the last call, and we'll keep answering it. For as long as we can, for as long as we're able, for as long as the darkness keeps calling. Because once you've heard the voices, once you've looked into the well, once you've seen what lives in the dark places, you can never unhear them, can never unsee them, can never go back to the comfortable ignorance of not knowing. You're changed, marked, chosen in a way, and there's no escape from that, no retirement, no walking away. The voices will always call, the darkness will always be there, the monsters will always be hungry, and will always answer, will always go into the dark, will always try to help, even when we know it might be the last thing we ever do. That's the last call, the one that never ends, the one that echoes through every dark place in this city, in this world, in the spaces between what we know and what we fear. And as long as there are people who can hear it, who are willing to answer it, who are brave or foolish or desperate enough to face what waits in the dark, there's hope. Not much. Not always. But some, and sometimes, in this job that's all you get. That small, flickering hope that maybe this time you'll make a difference. Maybe this time you'll save someone. Maybe this time you'll seal the well and destroy the monster and walk away clean. It doesn't always work out that way. Usually doesn't. But you keep trying anyway. Keep answering the calls, keep going into the dark. Because someone has to. And if not you, then who? That's the question I ask myself every night. Every shift. Every time the radio crackles and that voice comes through, telling me about something strange, something wrong, something calling out from the darkness. Who will answer if I don't? Who will face the monsters if I walk away? Who will remember the forgotten if I choose to forget? Nobody, that's who. And I can't live with that. Can't accept it. Can't turn my back on the voices calling from the dark places. So I answer every time, every call, every last call that might actually be the last. I go into the darkness. I face the monsters. I try to help. And maybe that makes me a fool. Maybe that makes me a hero. Maybe it just makes me a cop doing his job. I don't know. I don't care. All I know is that the darkness is calling. The voices are crying out. The monsters are waiting. And I'm answering. Now and always. Until the last call becomes the last call. Until the darkness wins or the light does. Until the monsters are destroyed or they destroy me. Until the voices fall silent or I can no longer hear them. That's the job. That's the life. That's the burden I chose when I put on this badge. And I'll carry it until I can't anymore. Until the darkness takes me. Until the last call finally ends. But until then, I'll keep watching. Keep listening. Keep answering. Because that's what we do. That's who we are. That's the promise we made when we swore to protect and serve. Even when what we're protecting people from shouldn't exist. Even when what we're serving is a city that's built on cursed ground. Even when the job requires us to face horrors that would drive most people insane. We answer the call. The last call. The only call that matters. The one that says someone needs help. Someone is in danger. Someone is calling from the dark. And we go. We always go. Into the wells and the basements and the abandoned places. Into the dark. Into the unknown. Into whatever hell waits for us. Because someone has to, and we chose to be that someone. That's the last call, and it never stops calling. Never stops echoing through the night, through the darkness, through the empty places where monsters dwell. It calls, and we answer, now and always, until the very end. That's the job, that's the burden, that's the honor and the curse and the gift and the nightmare. That's the last call, and it's never really the last. There's always another. Always one more. Always a voice crying out from the darkness, asking for help, begging to be found, hoping that someone, anyone, will answer. And I will. We will. For as long as we can. For as long as the darkness lets us. Because that's who we are. The ones who answer the last call. The ones who face the darkness. The ones who remember the forgotten and help the helpless and fight the monsters that shouldn't exist. That's us. That's me. That's the life I chose. The burden I carry. The job I do every night, every shift, every time the darkness calls. And I wouldn't have it any other way. Even knowing what I know. Even having seen what I've seen. Even carrying the weight of all those voices, all those deaths, all those monsters. I wouldn't trade it, wouldn't walk away, wouldn't choose ignorance over knowledge, safety over duty, comfort over courage. This is my calling, my purpose, my last call, and I'll keep answering it until I can't anymore. Until the darkness wins, or I do. Until the voices fall silent, or I join them in the dark. That's the promise, that's the oath, that's the job. And I'll honor it to my last breath. My last heartbeat, my last moment of consciousness. Because once you've heard the voices calling from the dark places, you can never stop hearing them. And once you've answered, you can never stop answering. The last call becomes your life, your purpose, your reason for being. And you accept it, embrace it, carry it with honor and duty and the grim knowledge that this is what you were meant to do. This is who you were meant to be, the one who answers the last call, the one who faces the darkness, the one who never stops trying, never stops caring, never stops believing that maybe, just maybe, this time you can make a difference. That's me, that's us, that's the burden and the blessing of being the ones who answer when the darkness calls. And I wouldn't have it any other way. Even now, even knowing what I know, even after everything I've seen, I'd make the same choice, answer the same call, face the same darkness. Because that's the job, that's who I am, that's the last call, and it's calling again, right now, on my radio, a voice telling me about something strange, something wrong, something calling from the dark, and I'm answering, just like I always do. Just like I always will. Until the very last call, the one I don't come back from, the one that finally ends it all. But until then, I'll keep going, keep answering, keep facing the darkness, keep trying to help, keep honoring the promise I made when I put on this badge. That's the job, that's the life, that's the burden and the honor, and I accept it. All of it. Every terrible, beautiful, horrifying moment of it. Because someone has to. And I chose to be that someone. The one who answers the last call. Now and always. Until the end.